Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November 18th business meeting of the Board of School Directors. We're going to start off with audience recognition on agenda items only. So if you would like to speak to an agenda item, then please come in, sign in with Ms. LaPera. When you speak, please identify yourself by name and where you live, and there will be a 3-minute time limit. So if you want to speak before the meeting gets started, now's the time to do that for an agenda item.
I have a few that have already signed up, so if we could have the first 3 people that signed up come on up.
But if you would like to, we would like to ask people to come and sign up now so that we have an idea of how many people are speaking. Thank you.
Denise, do you want to sit over there so that you're not blocking the
Sure.
Microphone, and then people could...
Okay, so our first speaker, remember our comments, I thought I said that, 3 minutes. Our first, please go ahead and start. Thank you.
My name is Daphne Scullin. I live on Barrett Avenue in Haverford, Lower Merion. We have 1 child at Gladwin and 1 at Welsh Valley. The school district mandates that our town feed to Harriton, which is geographically the farther high school. We're okay with feeding to Harriton so long as Harriton remains equal in size and equal in programming to Lower Merion. I've been walking around the western towns for the last few days talking to families who have children within the school district, and these are some of the questions that came up. Why would the school district give anyone choice? Why doesn't the school district assign schools for the children in the eastern part of the township as they do in the west? Will the choice zones be permanent? Is there financial gain in being in the choice zones, i.e., is it a selling point for real estate? If the school board passes this, and since we pay the same taxes in the western towns as in the east, what accommodations will the school district make to those who attend Harriton if Harriton's population drops below 1,100 and becomes an underpopulated and lesser school? I have a petition signed by 50 parents in the township. 100% of the people I approached signed the petition. The petition asked the school board to wait 2 years on this decision, and in that time that you do everything in your power to get your numbers and projections corrected, and that you try to make the 2 high schools equal in size and equal in programming. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Mary Walsh, and I live on 10 Moor Road in Haverford. I'm the mother of a Harriton graduate from 2012. And I have more of a question, which I understand you won't answer now, but perhaps you could consider it too. When the board first released the enrollment projections for the proposed increased choice zone, it had numbers for a scenario where 75% of those in the choice zone would opt for Lower Merion and 25% for Harriton. This doesn't seem to be an implausible scenario, given that that was the rough percentages before the previous redistricting. When the revised figures were released in September, this scenario was dropped, and I'm curious as to why that was, and what would be the enrollment projections for a 75-25 split. And then another question is, in the event that when the choice zone is restored, that a larger number than you anticipate choose Lower Merion, and that LM becomes overcrowded and Harriton becomes under capacity, what is your plan for that? What would you do in that scenario, in that case? And thank you.
Thank you. Can you have the next speaker, please?
Good evening. I'm Amara Briggs. I'm the president of the Neighborhood Club of Bala Cynwyd, and tonight I'm here to read a resolution that was unanimously adopted by the Board of Directors of the Neighborhood Club last week. Whereas the Lower Merion School Board of Directors is considering a proposal to expand the choice zone for Lower Merion High School to include all areas that prior to the fall of 2009 had been districted to Lower Merion High School, but as a result of the 2009 redistricting were then assigned to Harriton High School. Whereas the Lower Merion Board of School Directors accepted a Community Advisory Committee report, CAC, in 2004, recommending that 2 high schools of equal size with equal curriculum be built. Whereas the Lower Merion School Board of Directors approved and built 2 new high schools for 1,250 students with a maximum capacity of 1,400 students based on the CAC recommendation. Whereas the Lower Merion School Board of Directors in 2009 adopted Redistricting Plan 3R that assigned a portion of South Ardmore students to Harriton High School from Lower Merion High School, a neighborhood school to which they could all walk, and denied that part of South Ardmore High School choice when all other areas of Ardmore were assigned to or had choice to attend Lower Merion High School. Whereas the Lower Merion School District has projected a large growth in student enrollment over the next 8 years, such that both schools are projected to exceed the maximum capacity of 1,400 students. Whereas the Lower Merion School Board of Directors will vote tonight on November 18th, 2013 to expand the Lower High School Choice Zone to enable the population of Lower Merion High School to grow to 1,800 students while limiting the student population at Harriton High School to 1,400. Now therefore, the Neighborhood Club of Bala-Cynwyd hereby resolves, 1, to request the Lower Merion School District and the Lower Merion High School Board of Directors to wait 2 years before deciding on full expansion of the choice zone so that the school district can obtain the best data on costs, impacts to equal education at both high schools, parking and enrollment statistics, as such data will provide, guidance on the most fiscally and educationally responsible way to move forward, and 2, to consider the school year beginning in September 2014 to restore choice to those areas of South Ardmore impacted by the 2009 redistricting. Submitted, the Neighborhood Club of Bala-Cynwyd, on behalf of its Board of Directors. Mara Briggs.
Thank you. Go ahead.
My name is Todd Sinai, and I live in Marion Station. Tonight, you'll be voting on a policy to address high school enrollment growth. Let's recap. You anticipate a capacity problem. You project more students than you have space at the high schools. However, the balance of students at the high schools is good. The current attendance zones yield balanced enrollment through at least 2022. The way to reliably address the capacity problem is to add capacity when needed and where needed at each high school. You wouldn't need new space at either school until 2018. Instead, the proposed plan is to expand the choice area now. But that plan does not work. If actual enrollments are slightly below the consultant's forecast, but still within the margin of error, the plan doesn't work. If actual enrollments are slightly above projections, the plan doesn't work. If more than 60% of students with choice pick Lower Merion, the plan doesn't work. If fewer than 40% of students with choice pick Lower Merion, the plan doesn't work. And if the choice ratio is in between, the plan doesn't work unless you defer it for 2 years. By doesn't work, I mean that expanding choice would overload Lower Merion with more than 1,800 students, deplete Harriton of the students it needs to support equal course programming, overload Lower Merion when Harriton still has excess capacity, or simply fail to solve the capacity problem altogether. Worse, the administration's plan commits to enrollment imbalance, creating a problem where you have none. It is wasteful because it accelerates renovation spending that otherwise might be unnecessary. It stresses existing capacity by shifting students from Harriton to Lower Merion precisely when Lower Merion is overcrowded and Harriton is underutilized. And it forces excess spending and imbalanced enrollments, even if expanded choice does not affect attendance patterns. Better to wait and add the capacity where the students turn out to be. There's a lot of uncertainty about the future. Already, the high school enrollments are outside the margin of error of the consultant's forecast, and waiting lets you tailor your plan. The savings from not building in the wrong place would more than offset any duplication in cost. The proposed plan expands choice despite its effect on enrollment, not because of it. That leads to the bizarre logic of wanting to expand choice now so you have ample warning when it does not work. It leads to an administration that simply does not report the scenarios where the plan obviously fails, and thus there is no contingency planning. It leads to no survey of the students in the expanded choice zone to try and figure out where they would elect to go to high school. If you want to expand choice for its own sake, you should have separate hearings for an expanded choice policy action and plan for it. But if you want to address a capacity problem, you should wait to see where the students will be and add capacity there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name is Gerald Aronson, and I'm a Penn Valley resident since 1971, with the proud distinction of having both of our now mature adult children attending both Lower Merion High School and Harriton High School, yet we live in the same place. My wife and I, as taxpayers independently, feel that perhaps the decision about choice and building new capacity is premature. Right now, Lower Merion has 2 schools and 2 campuses. And perhaps there needs to be some thinking out of the box, with the goal being best quality education for all students in Lower Merion, independent of where they attend schools. I suggest that perhaps the board, as it's considering other educational innovations, consider the concept of a single school with 2 campuses. The entire cohort would go for 2 years at one school and then would go for 2 years at another school. No choice, but maintain the cohort, maintain the social relationships and the educational relationships, and perhaps invest the dollars in higher quality programs for children who are either academically talented or at risk for academic challenge, as well as our big group of kids in the middle. So again, I'm just encouraging the board to consider thinking out of the box rather than thinking traditionally, which is to build more buildings, spend more dollars, and have more taxes for our Lower Merion residents. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker. Do we know who's next, Denise, or have it? Okay.
Yeah, hi. I wear 2 hats tonight. So the first is as the president of the Penn Valley Civic Association. And I want to thank my neighbor for coming out tonight. We have had various discussions, but
Sorry, can you just tell us your name, please?
Jeannie Cohen.
Okay, thank you.
And our collective opinions are that if students can walk to school, they should be able to walk. I know there have been many discussions by the different civics. Unfortunately, we did not have a quorum, so we could not vote on the resolutions that were in front of us. Next, I come as a former school board director, and I will say whether you're a present or a former school board director, you're never popular. The facts are that you really, as a school board director, look out and have the responsibility to make sure there's a safety net for the more than 6,000 students each year that attend. And you represent 54,000 residents. You do have a fiduciary responsibility, but you really are the ultimate volunteer, and thank yous are very infrequent. So I come tonight because there is going to be a turnover on the board, and I wanted to recognize 2 people that I served with on the board, Gary Friedlander and Jerry Novick. And I want to say, as far as Gary, I think the only time he missed a meeting was if there was a top Villanova basketball team. As far as Jerry, I wanted to say he led the board during some difficult times. And one thing about Jerry is he always got to not always the issue that was brought to the board, but what is the root of the problem. So I just wanted to recognize these 2 individuals and say thank you to the entire board. And as I recall, being on the board was a terrific experience, especially when you had talented staff, which we see here. So good luck with the topic of tonight's meeting, and thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very nice.
Thank you very much, Jeannie.
And I did miss Villanova games.
Denise, who will be the next person?
then Joel Johnson.
Sorry. Marie Beresford. I live in Ardmore. I have 2 daughters at Welsh Valley Middle School. And it's amazing to see all these people here tonight. I have actually had the good fortune of having attended the meetings over the last almost year and watched you thoroughly and responsibly go through all the data and listen to the outside consultants that were hired. And I really appreciate all your hard work on this. I hope you support this resolution, and I hope that we can move beyond facilities and onto curriculum. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Amy Knorr, Penn Valley. My name's Amy Knorr, and I'm co-president of the Interschool Council, which represents families from the 10 schools in our district. On behalf of the Interschool Council, I'd like to thank Gary Friedlander, Jerry Novick, and Lynn Kugel for their years of service as school board directors. The fact that Gary and Jerry each have served for 12 years and Lynn for 10 is an incredible public service. It is a huge undertaking to serve on the board. Thank you for the time and energy you've devoted to participating in school board meetings, committee meetings, community forums, and ISC meetings. And thank you for the untold time you've spent behind the scenes studying the issues and preparing for these events. Over the years, you've devoted many, many hours to listening to the public and then making decisions on so many complex topics, from facility planning to redistricting, testing, technology, curriculum improvement, the achievement gap, and the budget. You've given your time freely and with deep thoughtfulness and caring. We understand and appreciate the sacrifice this has involved. We thank you for your years of dedication to our children, our schools, and our community. And we thank your families for sharing you with us over these many years.
Thank you, Amy.
Good evening, Joel Johnson. I live in Ardmore. I rise this evening to encourage the board to support restoring choice. And I'd like to make a couple of observations. I guess as one of the previous speakers mentioned, there have been numerous public meetings about this topic. By my count, I think that it's up to 24. So also in response to another comment earlier, thank you for taking a very deliberative and strategic approach to a plan that does not compel any students to do anything. I'll note that a previous board of directors held 4 public meetings and presented effectively 4 different plans to compel students to a new high school, which broke up neighborhoods and broke up cohorts and many other negative ramifications. So again, thank you for taking a very deliberative approach to this process. One of the things that I learned during these 24 meetings was that a previous board also did not retain outside consultants to project school populations. And I think you could probably make a case that that's part of the reason we may be here today talking about this topic. So we spent over $200 million building 2 new high schools with no external consultants projecting the numbers. Sort of remarkable, I think. So again, I applaud this board's approach to the process. Not only hired outside consultants to look at the numbers, but also brought in additional consultants to review the first consultants' work. So again, clearly a very strategic approach, clearly a very reasonable plan that is more socially responsible, more fiscally responsible, and more environmentally responsible. So again, thank you for your efforts, and I hope you support restoring choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, next speakers.
James Herbert, Robert Fulton, and
Ruth Jenkin Winwood. The original decision to choose the third option and least appropriate for redistricting resulted in a lot of hardship and a lot of bad feelings. We are now on the verge of trying to undo the mistakes all at once, which will result in one overcrowded high school, and one underutilized high school. And I urge the board to transition slowly to right the wrong instead of making another mistake.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm James Herbert from Ardmore, and I'd like to begin by echoing what some of my neighbors have said, which is to Jerry, Gary, and Lynn to thank you very much for your service on the school board. I haven't always agreed with you, but I've always appreciated the time and effort you've put into this. I want to echo a lot of the things that my neighbor Joel Johnson just said. Basically, that I'm actually surprised in hearing some of the comments tonight, because it's as though some people are just discovering some of this for the first time, and there's a number of errors, and I'm not going to sit here and debunk every one, but the idea that we're going to have an overcrowded school and an underutilized school is just not at all the case in the proposed plan, no matter how the numbers come out. And the idea that we can go to a fantasy of having 1,250 students in each school, guess what? There's already more kids coming up. We know they exist. They're there. The schools they're here. They're going to be here. So we're not living in some fantasy land. As Joel said, the proposal that you have before you is the result of a lot of deliberation, a lot of effort. I applaud he was thinking the school board, actually the administration, is the one who have really put forth a lot of effort into building that plan, and I applaud that. There's one last thing, though, that I want to bring up, and I brought it up at the last meeting, and it's sort of the elephant in the room that we don't like to talk about, and that is the racial issue involved here. The prior school board, and as the discovery in the lawsuit process made clear, the decision to go with the plan that resulted in the problems that we now face was racially based. And that's a fact. When the courts, the federal court and then the Court of Appeals ruled that it was legal, they first ruled that it was a race-based decision. And the prior school board essentially decided that they wanted equal number of African American students at the two schools. And this is a fact. This is a findings of fact from the federal court. So they did all of that while denying that publicly that was even going on. That created a lot of problems and a lot of bad feelings. And you now have a golden opportunity with the demographic bubble that's happened, that you have an opportunity to fix that and to correct the problem. And I just can't imagine that you wouldn't take that opportunity, and that would go a long way to beginning to heal many of the rifts that have been created by that prior decision. So again, I applaud both the administration and the board's efforts in putting together this very reasonable proposal, and I encourage you to support it.
Thank you. Next speakers.
I'm Bob Folk Jr., Gladwin. I'm also the Gladwin Civic Association president. We support the waiting of the 2 years. I know that there's been a lot of work done on this. The Civic had some information brought to it. It's a lot to follow, and I know that you guys put a lot of time in on this, but the Civic supports waiting the 2 years. We don't foresee that you're going to be lost in waiting to vet your numbers. If the numbers are wrong, are we going to end up selling schools again? It's just, the best thing to do is just to wait and see if those numbers actually flesh out. I can't see that waiting the 2 years is going to put us that far behind. And on behalf of the Civic Association, we support the Federation's proposal to wait the 2 years. And I appreciate your time. I know it's a lot of work. I appreciate your time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Good evening, Rosa Sirota Winwood. I would first like to recommend some really good reading. It's the Community Advisory Committee report. If you haven't had a chance to read it yet, I think this is our commitment that was made to our children for 2 equal-sized schools. Thank you. Good. And I'll make copies for everyone else, but I don't think you need them. You probably read it. And also for folks in the audience, too, that this is what our children deserve. This was a commitment for an equal education for them. And whatever decision you make this evening, I hope that you will respect this commitment as you go forward in whatever way you can do that, because this is a problem to be solved. But also, I have attended these board meetings for the past 20 years. I don't know if I said my name is Rosa Sirota. I live in Wynwood. Much of education is about studying the information, doing your homework, formulating useful information, questioning and investigating various solutions. Each of you who are finishing your terms on the board this evening have served as excellent examples for our children. We tell our children to question. We tell them to look at various solutions. We tell them to not accept the information for exactly what it is, but to be able to look past that and investigate and come up with a variety of solutions. I feel that Gary Friedlander certainly has done that. I feel that Lynn Kugel has done that. And I feel that Jerry Novick has done that, along with many, many hours dedicated to Gary with his knowledge of special education and his interest in that area. Lynn for her health background and interest in the day-to-day lives of children. And Jerry for his work with the legislative issues. But most of all, I would like to thank them for their diligence and their questioning nature. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have other speakers? Do we have other speakers? Okay, is there anyone else who would like to speak? Can you please sign in now? This will be the last opportunity before we move on.
Hi, I'm just here to say thank you to Gary Friedlander and Jerry. Oh, sorry, Susan Guthrie, Marion Station. I always make that mistake. I'm here tonight just to say thank you to Gary Friedlander and Jerry Novick for your many years of service. I concur with Jeannie's comments. It was a pleasure to serve with you both, and now as a parent and taxpayer, I appreciate all of your hard work and the integrity and professionalism which you brought to the tasks at hand. I also want to thank Ann Friedlander and Judy Novick, who I understand are here, for all of their sacrifices over the years. And so best of luck to Gary and Jerry. I'm sure you'll find good use for your Monday nights going forward.
Hi, my name is Francie McComb, and I'm from Ballackinwood. I want to thank both Jerry and Gary, and as we refer to her in our house, Mira's mom. My question really is, why the rush? Civic associations from the most eastern to the most western are asking you to wait. The Federation of Civics is asking you to wait. 50 people from Haverford are asking you to wait. What unites all of us is a desire for equal-sized high school, which is what we were promised before spending $220 million on the construction. I understand that some people from Ardmore and Narberth want to undo the 2009 redistricting so their kids can choose LM. That is what the proponents, every one of them in this room, have said. But this decision affects every child in the district, as it will eliminate equal-sized high school, period. That's what's going to happen. It will jeopardize equal programming. But I think there's a middle ground. Move South Ardmore now. It solves the issues that Mr. Herbert mentioned that led to the lawsuit. It gives us a test case. No one knows what percentage will choose LM versus Harriton. But we do know when the expanded choice zone of 4 years ago was exactly the same as what you're proposing, the number was 75%. We know that if 75% choose LM, and that's possible, we will quickly move to a scenario where LM has far more students than Harriton. LM will in fact dwarf Harriton. And that makes equal programming very unlikely if you look at how much you spend per child. We know we were promised equal-sized high schools, and we will not have them starting next year. LM is already 100 students bigger. What will be next year, 150, 200? You know that your own numbers say that Harriton will not be overcrowded until 2018 at the earliest. Those are your numbers. They're on the website. You know that LM's DAO is usable on the first 2 floors right now without any construction, and it can handle the organic growth from our existing districting, plus South Ardmore as well. So you can wait. Why not? I have yet to hear, and I've been to a lot of meetings, any justification for not waiting. The other thing is parking. Parking for students and staff is required by Lower Merion Township Code. It is not something that you can waive. It is not within your jurisdiction. And from what I hear, you cannot take the additional students at LM as set forth in your own projections without creating more parking, which requires moving the buses, which means construction at LM will cost millions of dollars more than your current cost estimates. That is not fiscally prudent. It means our buses will travel miles and miles to wherever they are stored. That's not environmentally prudent. In that scenario, leaving the expanded choice zone just to South Ardmore makes a lot of sense, and building at Harriton may be a lot less expensive. So I ask you, go for the middle ground. Do the right thing. Wait for the rest. Just move South Ardmore now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any more speakers, Denise? There are two more, right? Those are our last two. Oh.
I'm sorry, I didn't sign in. You go ahead.
Okay.
My name is Kate Gaylor. I'm from Ardmore. I just want to say that I do support expanding choice to Ardmore, surprise, and for many reasons not building at Harriton, which is certainly not environmentally friendly. I really don't have much more to say. This has been going on for a really long time, and meetings about this particular topic have been going on for a long time. So I just want to say that there's a lot of support in our neighborhood to expand choice, and you hear some of our voices here. We're not always the loudest voice, but we are here. So please consider it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for all your hard work. I know you're all volunteers, and I am a volunteer, and I volunteer all the time. So I just want to let you know that it's very valued in this community, and you guys basically run our community like a lot of volunteers. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm Val Hiscock. I'm president of the North Ardmore Civic Association. The North Ardmore Civic Association is firmly opposed to the proposal to allow Lower Merion High School enrollment to grow to 1,800 students while limiting the student population of Harriton to 1,400. And we fully recognize the complexity of the issues facing the school district in planning for enrollment projections for as many as 3,200 high school students in the next decade. We ask that the following be considered. Number one, the commitment to 2 equal high schools. The Lower Merion community, by way of 50 community representatives on the Community Advisory Committee appointed by the school district, committed to the expenditure of over $200 million for the 2 new high schools to be built of equal size and with equal curriculums. The commitment to equal enrollment and equal curriculums made to the Lower Merion citizens can and must be honored with accommodations made for equal enrollments. Number 2, 1,800 students at Lower Merion High School is problematic and unacceptable. 1,800 students at Lower Merion with a maximum capacity of 1,400 will result in too many students in areas like hallways, cafeteria, auditorium, etc. We have serious concerns about traffic congestion around the high school, increased danger to pedestrians coming and going from the high school, more buses coming and going, parking spilling over into the neighborhood, and/or the permanent incursion of a parking garage. This would be unfair to the students, unfair to the community, and unfair to the taxpayers of Lower Merion. Number 3, 2 equal high schools at Lower Merion and at Harriton would work if the 9th grade learning center concept were adopted at both schools. Schools have a capacity of 1,400 with 200 9th graders in a 9th grade learning center at any given time. It would work. Choice for South Ardmore, we ask that the school board restore choice for this community. This has been redistricted so many times in the past 50 years. This issue needs to be taken off the table so that discussions can take place about projected enrollment growth, facilities planning, and maintaining the quality of educational planning in our high schools. We ask that the decision about facilities be put off for 2 years. Restore choice for South Ardmore now.
Thank you. Okay. We're now, sorry, I don't know if people can hear me. We're now going to move on to some routine business. So I know that most people are here around the issue that people are speaking to, but we actually have quite a lot of business that we have to attend to this evening first. Okay, that's right. Dr. McGinley reminded me that there are people here for American Education Week as well, so we're going to get to that shortly. So just some routine business first. I need to approve the minutes of the following meetings of the Board of School Directors. October 21st, regular business board meeting, November 11th, Education Committee and supplementary regular board meeting, as well as accepting the minutes from the following committee meetings, October 23, Communications, November 4, Curriculum, November 8th, Policy, November 14th, Facilities and Purchasing, and November 15th, Finance. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I so move.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. I'm now going to turn it over to Dr. McGinley.
Thank you. Good evening. This evening I have the pleasure of thanking with deep appreciation for the hours and the time that we have spent together these past 6 years, 3 members of the Board of School Directors who conclude their service this evening. And as I have been sitting here listening to Jeannie Cohen's comment about being a board member is never popular, and I also would add that you're rarely at home, I have really thought about and I was only here for half of your tenure, the 12-year people, and 6 of the 10 years, Lynn, that you've been here. But when I think about the Sunday night emergency meetings, the long conference calls that we had with a variety of experts on issues of technology, on issues of the law, on issues of insurance, on issues of water retention. Love that water retention conversation. I realized just how many hours that we have spent together, and then how many times we've sent you this huge packet on a Friday and assumed that you'd be up to speed by Monday no matter what else was going on in your lives. And I think that many people don't realize the time that is required of members of the board and the people who are newly elected. Good luck. And also the amount of personal and professional expertise that you bring to the job. And a job for which you receive no compensation other than the deep satisfaction of being a school board member, and the thanks and appreciation from people who do know and understand what goes into the job. So during your tenure, there were a number of large-scale construction projects that needed a great deal of attention. There were other difficult and challenging issues connected with technology. There was the vision that you had to build 2 high schools, and the good fortune that we have now to have 2 good high school facilities. And I would have to note also that if it hadn't happened then, before the economy tanked, it would not have happened because of the economy and because of Act 1. So you've also provided a lot of guidance and assistance on a number of legal and personnel matters. You've hired superintendents, some of you 2. Some of you have worn out 2 superintendents, and some just 1. I do want to thank each of you, and we have certain things for you. So let's begin. Jerry, you were elected to the board 3 times, served 12 years on the board. You served as board president. You also worked on a number of really important legislative issues that took you all over the state and all over the community. You did an exemplary job as the Facilities Committee Chairman, and you brought with you to that role a lot of professional expertise around a variety of issues. And we have counted on your professional expertise, and I have to say that there were a few times when your knowledge of the insurance industry and your willingness to push us and push members of the administration even further enabled the district to just recoup hundreds of thousands of dollars that would have otherwise been lost. It was a pleasure to have you here, and we have a couple of items for you. So the first is a plaque that is presented to Gerald J. Novick, School Director 2001 to 2013, President of the Board of School Directors 2002 to 2003, in recognition of his talents, commitment, and leadership from Lower Merion School District today, November 18th, 2013. Okay. And the second is a certificate of appreciation, which I will not read, from the Pennsylvania School Boards Association, noting your 12 years of service. And 12 years is an incredibly long time. 12 years ago, I was, 26? You know, it really is something to stay committed that long, and good school districts need school board directors who stay for a very long period of time, and people who have the institutional memory to make the very best decisions, and this is for you. So, you want to make a comment? You'll make your comment there?
Can't go anywhere without my written comments. So I don't know where to face, not being at the board table. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for their kind comments. Jeannie Cohen, Amy Knorr, James Herbert, Rosa Sirota, Susan Guthrie, and Francie McComb. I think I left somebody out, I apologize. But I really appreciate all the comments. It is generally a thankless job, but well worth it. I just jotted something down as you were speaking, Dr. McGinley, and that is that this district gave a lot to me. I was a student here from grade 1 through grade 12, and in many ways it made me what I am today, for better or for worse. But I will have to say that it was my highest honor to serve as a board member in this district. And for that, I thank the people of this district for supporting me. So I love David Letterman, and I made a couple of top 5 lists. Didn't have enough time to do top 10 lists, but first, the top 5 things I will miss when I'm not on the board. Number 1, the annual get-together at the Marion Meeting House with our administrators and school principals to start the new year. Always a pleasant time to reconnect after the summer and meet the new faces. Always a pleasure, and usually great weather. Number 4, facilities committee meetings. I love the free-ranging dialogue we were able to engage in that's so often missing from the board table, and the talent and commitment of our Director of Operations, Pat Ganan, and our Business Manager, Vic Orlando, and Dr. McGinley. You never cease to amaze me with your grasp of the detail and everything we discussed, and for that, I thank you. I will very much miss that monthly discourse. Working with the board secretary. That's you. This has always been a pleasure. We've been blessed by blessed with a series of the kindest, most responsive board secretaries. What you don't appreciate is, you're running late for a meeting, or you misplaced a piece of paper, and there's one person to call, and it's the board secretary. And Denise, you stood up with the rest of them, and for that I thank you and will always be appreciative. Graduations. I remember my first year on the board. It was not a particularly pleasant one. We had some very, very significant disagreements over the direction of the new building program for the high schools. And we had a lot of nasty, long meetings in the old, I forget what the room was called, in the basement of, the SDA, the Staff Development Center, a small room, probably enough for 40 people, and there were maybe 150 people in the room. They'd be standing 5 feet in front of you. And somebody said to me once, "Boy, you'll really like the graduations." I said, "Graduation? Are you kidding? I want to get through tonight, let alone get to graduation." But they're certainly one of the highlights of every year, and again, one of the highest of all honors as a board director, to give diplomas to our students that are graduating from the high schools. Not to mention the honor of giving your son or daughter their own diploma, or friends and other family. It's really a unique capability that you get as a board member, and although we don't get compensated monetarily, I think that's a benefit that's really priceless. And finally, working with our incredibly talented and dedicated staff. I can't say that strongly enough, from our administrators on down to our teachers, to our building administrators, to our facilities staff. We used to get into a lot of nitty-gritty here. When I first got on the board, we'd walk the buildings a lot more. We had some time to do that. I remember Sandy Griffin would say after me, "Let's go walk the halls," and we'd walk through the halls and pop into classrooms. We had issues where maintenance staff would come in and speak to us. I've been repeatedly impressed by all of your dedication to this district and its students, and for that I thank you, each and every one of you. I love and appreciate your thoughtful, and to our administrators, love and appreciate your thoughtful and well-prepared presentations. your input to the issues before us. You're our lifeline of information, and I thank you for that. Top 5 things I will not miss. Just want to make sure I'm not going to get in trouble. Number 5, the gourmet, sorry, kitchen staff, the gourmet sandwich selection for dinner after rushing out of the office. 4, angsting over difficult decisions that will impact thousands of students and constituents. That feeling has been there since day one, has never gone away. I have it tonight. We have a big vote later on tonight. Number 3, running out of my downtown office at 5:30 to get to the district for a 6 p.m. meeting. Number 2, running out of my downtown office at 6:30 to get to the district for a 7 p.m. meeting. It can be done, but I don't recommend it for the faint of heart. And number 1, running out of my downtown office at 7 p.m. for a 7 p.m. meeting. That can't be done. I've tried it. I won't miss throwing dinner down in 5 minutes on my way to work to a board meeting. I'll get 10 minutes now. So there are 3 things that I've always strived for as a board member, things that have been my guiding principles from day one. First, that education comes first. We're all here for that reason. That includes all of the prior board members I served with and all of my current board members. Notwithstanding our differences, I think we're all here for the same reason, and I'm proud of that. Second, to focus on the fact that I'm a representative of the entire district and not just one community. And third, to assist in making the district's goals and actions transparent. To this day, and from day one, I've committed myself to those ideals. I'm proud of the work we've done renovating and expanding the 3 elementary schools, finishing up the renovations and expansion of the prior elementary and middle school projects, and finally the high school projects, and many in between. Dr. McGinley, you mentioned a couple of them earlier. I'm proud that I live in a district that values education so highly, and that includes my fellow board members, as I mentioned earlier. We might disagree, sometimes strongly so, but I never question their commitments to quality education. And I'm proud to have served with some of the outstanding and dedicated superintendents, including Dr. David McGill, Dr. Sandy Griffin, Dr. Jamie Savadoff, and now you, Dr. Chris McGinley. I feel very comfortable that we have a strong leader in Dr. McGinley, so I leave this board tonight with the anticipation of great things to come. And finally, there's my wife. I'd like to thank my family for all that they have put up with through the years, the missed dinners and events, the late nights, pouring over board work. I thank you all from the bottom of my heart, including my 2 children who are not here tonight. Thank everyone for all their support very much.
Next, I'm pleased to acknowledge the service of Gary Friedlander, who was also elected to the board 3 times and served a full 12 years. Gary has served for many years as the chair of the Finance Committee, and sometimes that was a really lonely position to hold. He's also been a strong advocate around issues of special education. He's been a tireless supporter of elementary schools, particularly Marion. I'm not sure why. And he took a very active interest in preserving the quality of schools and the quality of our facilities, and he served as vice president of the board in 2002-2003. Gary was always willing to ask hard questions, and those of you who have attended recent meetings have seen that Gary and I kind of go at it a little bit. But the hard question that I enjoyed him asking a few years back when we had a better selection of food was the call on the afternoon of the board meeting to ask what was for dinner. That was a much more pleasant and enjoyable conversation. Unfortunately, an unnecessary one now because there's no food.
That's why I'm not running for another.
Right, I think that's why the switch in the menu and then the elimination of food entirely has led you. So I wish you great times and satisfaction on Monday evenings, and I thank you very much for your dedicated service to the district. And I have things for you also. So, and those are actually the same things that Jerry received, but they have your name on them. And this plaque notes that you were vice president of the board in 2002-2003. Otherwise, it's the same as Jerry's. And this is in recognition for 12 years of service. And this one comes from the Pennsylvania School Boards Association. So thank you again.
first thing I want to say is I'm glad that my plaque doesn't say Jerry Friedlander, because I got 12 years. That's all I've ever been called is Jerry. So, a couple things. You said that we were committed. I think we should have been committed for doing for 12 years. Jeannie, I did miss one game. I said before, not that I remember, February 19, 2006. Number 3 Villanova played number 1 UConn, and I gave the tickets to my friend. And UConn was defeated by Villanova. And when I called my friend the next day, his words were, "It was the greatest game I ever went to." So I also want to thank everyone for their kind words and acknowledgement of Jerry, Lynn, and myself. And I want to thank Denise because she always answered my calls, and I know you have caller ID, so it means a lot to me. In terms of, superintendents, when Jerry and I were first elected to the board, not even sworn in, our very first meeting, we got invited to the executive session, and we're all excited, a little nervous because there were some difficult issues facing the board, the construction projects for the 3 remaining elementary schools and the 2 high schools. And I'm thinking, at least we know what's on the table. What could be worse? And at that point, Dr. David McGill goes, "I'm retiring." And we were off. So, yeah, we weren't even sworn in. So, when I would tell people that I was on the school board, they would get this pained look on their face and ask me, why would I ever think of doing that? The answer is simple. Serving as a school board director in Lower Merion has been an extremely rewarding experience. It has not always been easy. One of the first things you'll learn, the 3 newbies, it's a lot easier being on that side of the table than on this side of the table. While on the board, there have been many difficult decisions that we've had to make, and in voting on these issues, I have always, and I stress always, focused on what I felt was in the best interest of the district. I believe that through my service during the preceding 12 years, together with my fellow board members, that we have helped make Lower Merion continue to be one of the great school districts in the state. One of the best parts about being on the board was getting to meet and work with the district staff. This district is blessed to have and to have had so many great administrators, teachers, and support staff. My goal was to outlast Pat, but I just gave up after 12 years. I couldn't keep up with you. Each one works tirelessly to make this such a great district. I want to thank everyone collectively for all their support over the previous 12 years. It was truly an honor to work with you all. During my tenure, I have worked with 19 other directors, and I want to thank them all for their commitment to the district. But there is one person I need to single out, Jerry Novick. Though I did not know Jerry until we ran together for the school board in 2001, he has become a good friend. And over the years, I have valued your judgment. So I have a couple of farewell gifts for you. So for, I guess, 8 of the 12 years I've sat next to you, and Jerry always reaches into his pocket and pulls out food. I mean, he could feed a family of 5 what he pulls out. But his food of choice are M&M peanuts. So, Jerry, a little something. Feel free to share. Wait, Gary, hold on 1 second. Additionally, I know you're going to miss me, so I wanted to get you something so that you would always remember me. Something that you could put next to your bed and you would think about me on a Monday. So thank you, Anna O'Hara, because I got this lovely photo. Feel free to remove your wedding photo and replace it with this. Thank you very much. And one last thing, we will always have Boston. Yes, we will. So, last but not least, I want to thank my family for allowing me to serve on the board for 12 years. Though I try to minimize the instances when it would happen, there were family occasions that I missed because of meetings. So thank you, Ann, Andrew, and Kevin for being so understanding. When I told my wife that I would not be running again, she was very understanding. Her words were, "Don't expect dinners on Monday." So I will accept invitations from anyone in the audience. I'm free on Monday for dinner, obviously. But seriously, Ann, thank you for your continued support during the past 12 years. I appreciate it. I love you. Thank you.
And finally, I have the pleasure of recognizing Lynn Kugel for her 10 years of service. In most places, 10 years would be a record, but here we have people who have surpassed that. Lynn came on the board to fill an unexpired term and then was elected for 2 additional terms. And throughout her tenure, Lynn has had a keen interest in the arts, in issues of health and issues of mental health supports, and she often brought the student perspective back to the issue that was being discussed. Often with secondhand or third-hand or first-hand knowledge of things that had happened to kids in the district, and that was very centering on a number of occasions. Lynn served 2 terms as board vice president. She was a very active member of the curriculum committee and the policy committee, and we thank her for her service. And your plaque is similar to the other 2 plaques that were presented this evening. It notes that you were vice president of the Board of School Directors in the 2008 and 9 school year and the 2010-11 school year. So thank you very much for your dedication and your service.
Thank you. Thank you all. The Bobbsey twins are a tough act to follow, but I'll try. A passion for high-quality public education really inspired me to become a board director 10 years ago. That passion remains strong, and I am so grateful for the support of the residents of the township over the past decade who share this passion for quality public education. I have had the privilege of working with dedicated superintendents and administrators and wonderful educators and support staff over the last 10 years. During my tenure on the board, I've also had the opportunity to collaborate with other thoughtful and hardworking directors. I greatly value the range of insights, opinions, and concerns they have shared in discussions and deliberations, and believe that these differences have helped to build consensus and led to better decisions. My time on the board has been shared entirely with both Jerry and Gary, and I have tremendous respect for both of them and for the thoughtful, tireless contributions they have made to the district and the board. Jerry's concern for balancing competing interests and ensuring all sides of an issue are fully considered have been invaluable in our deliberation and decisions. Gary has consistently looked at budgetary and tax implications that arise out of the board's potential actions, an important reminder to those of us who serve as guardians of public resources. Gary and Jerry, thank you for your 12 years of service to the district and for your constant efforts to responsibly advance public education for our children. My time on the board has also been shared entirely with Diane Bonaventuro, and I would be remiss if not thanking Diane for her passion and commitment to the district. Even when we view often issues from differing perspectives, Diane has always found the time to talk through the challenges and issues confronting the board, and she brings concern and passion to all of her deliberations and thoughts around board issues. I also need to thank my family for the many nights and mornings they needed to find rides, reheat, or find a dinner, and for understanding when I needed to do my homework for the board and the endless phone calls and conversations and meetings that I've had that have pulled me away over the last 10 years. Their supports and understanding have been invaluable and have allowed me to pursue this passion for public education. Over the past decade, as a board and as a district, we have made tremendous advances in integrating the facilities, technology, curriculums, tools, and strategies required to prepare all of our students for 21st century college and career readiness. Lower Merion is one of the most highly regarded districts in our state and in the country. To maintain this position, we must continue to be dynamic and forward-thinking in our approach to education so we can continue to provide the rich mix of academic and co-curricular options that allow our children to develop critical thinking, creative, and athletic skills. I want to thank you all again for your support and trust over the past 10 years and for believing as I do in the value of high-quality public education. Thank you.
So I had actually written some things down as well, although I have to say I think my thunder has been stolen, but it's all good. I was going to talk about all the different ways in which Lynn and Jerry and Gary have served the district in terms of being vice president, vice president twice, chair of many committees, and your own particular interests that you have, expressed yourselves as you've been talking. So what I'd like to just say, and I'm speaking on behalf of all of my colleagues on the board, we'd really like to extend our gratitude for your years of service. Because it is a huge amount of work. And again, although we've not always all, even amongst ourselves, agreed, I think that we can all agree that we, as you've said, really come at this for a passion of public education, and the three of you have certainly demonstrated that. So we want to express our gratitude for your service, and also for your our best wishes in all your future endeavors, which hopefully will include a little bit of R&R, which is well deserved. And Gary, you're going to have to tell me who wins The Voice, and you got to promise to email me when that happens. Again, well, you see, I outed him anyway. But really, you've given countless hours of service to the community, and we're really grateful for this, and we will miss you. So thank you very much.
I just, I also had prepared remarks, which I will not belabor the point. No, feel free to talk. But, having served with all three of these people for their entire tenures, I would just like to say that it has been a pleasure and an honor to work with all three of you. I think your varying perspectives, your questions, your dedication to the position has made this board a stronger body, and the decisions more thoughtfully played out and considered. And I believe strongly that decisions are best made when you have differing viewpoints discussing them and not all one thought. And this is a perfect example of the four of us not always being on the same page on the same issue, but always respectful dialogue, thoughtful questions, and deep and passionate attention to the job at hand. So enjoy Monday nights and all those other nights, Thursday mornings. Feel free to come back. And thank you all very, very much.
Thank you. This is American Education Week, and American Education Week provides us a formal opportunity to reflect on the achievements and accomplishments of our exceptional staff and the quality of public education in our schools. And this week, the theme is Great Public Schools, a Basic Right and Our Responsibility. And we've heard a lot about people who take that responsibility and have taken that responsibility very seriously. So we mark the week by staff appreciation events, school tours, and public displays of the excellence that exists here in Lower Merion. The community should be well aware that the remarkable contributions of Lower Merion School District employees, our professional and support staff are on display every minute of every day, every school day, and well beyond. There is no staff more capable, qualified, and effective than ours. Parents, students, and community members regularly remind us of their pride in being served by the best and of the difference that each of you has made in their lives. From national accolades to local recognition of service, our staff has earned the respect and appreciation of countless stakeholders in the educational community. On behalf of the entire Lower Merion School District, I'd like to thank you for your tireless efforts to serve our children with outstanding care, competence, and professionalism. The success that this district enjoys is a direct result of the excellence of our staff. And now I'd like to ask Chris Santamaria, President of the Lower Merion Education Association, to come forward and recognize the representatives, our professional and support staff who are with us this evening. Mr. Santamaria.
Thank you, Dr. McGinley. Before I start reading down the list, I just want to take a moment to also thank Lynn and Jerry and Gary for your service on the board on behalf of the 1,365 members of the LMEA. Thank you for your service, and I hope you enjoy your extra time now. We have a few members of the LMEA who came out tonight to represent, I think, a broad spectrum of the staff that work in the district. And so I'll just go down the list alphabetically. And if you could come forward, please, and receive a small gift. We'll start with Sorrel Angel. Sorrel? Sorrel is a paraprofessional who runs the Help Center in the Lower Merion High School. Thanks, Sorrel. Next up, Amy Avellino. Amy teaches 3rd grade at Kinwood Elementary, is our first vice president of the LMEA. Next is Joanne Capelli. Joanne works as a paraprofessional at Welsh Valley Middle School and as a building rep for Welsh Valley. And is Becky here? I'm not sure if I saw Becky DeVernwell. No? Okay. Joan Harris. Joan is a 5th grade teacher at Penwyn Elementary and a building representative. Next is Jan Hemingway. Jan is a secretary at Lower Merion High School and a building rep. Next is Janet Lawson. Janet is, come on, Janet, come on, Janet. Come on, Janet. Janet is, I believe, a 5th grade teacher at Merion Elementary.
We're not so sure about that.
And next is the treasurer of the Lower Merion Education Association, Darlene Mandarino. Darlene is a secretary at Lower Merion High School. Next up, we have Lisa McDevitt. Lisa is our support secretary for the LMEA and the principal secretary at Kinwood Elementary. Is Margie here? No, I don't think so. Maureen Morrison. Maureen is the principal secretary at Penwyn Elementary School and a building rep. Angie Przybylski, and Angie is a member of our nursing staff. She moves between buildings, I believe. And Debbie Williams. Debbie is one of our LMEA representatives who works in central administration in the business office and runs our Sunshine Committee. That's the end of the list. I'm Chris, and I work at Harriton High School.
Yes, everyone who came forward received a proclamation commemorating American Education Week.
So the proclamation reads, whereas public schools are the backbone of our democracy, providing young people with the tools they need to maintain our nation's precious values of freedom, civility, and equality, and whereas by equipping young Americans with both practical skills and broader intellectual abilities, schools give them hope for and access to a productive future. And whereas education employees, be they substitute educators, custodians, teachers, bus drivers, or librarians, work tirelessly to serve our children and communities with care and professionalism. And whereas schools encourage community, bringing together adults and children, educators and volunteers, business leaders, and elected officials in a common enterprise. Now therefore, I, Melissa Gilbert, serving as president of the Lower Merion School District Board, do hereby proclaim November 18th through 22nd as the 92nd annual observance of American Education Week. And thank you to everyone on behalf of the entire board.
Thank you. So but just before we move to the action items, it was so nice to see that a local news station was here, and I hope that they caught the recognition of the service of the board members. I'm sure that's why they were here. So, moving to the...
I'm just hoping my photograph of Jerry does not appear on the news.
Right. First action item is I'm recommending that the Board of School Directors approve the human resource action items as listed in HR 1 through HR 5 and on the addendum HR 6 and HR 7.
Are there any questions? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Next is the report of the Curriculum Committee. Dr. Van Lynch.
Thank you, Dr. McGinley. The Curriculum Committee met on Monday, November 4th at 8:30 in the Lower Merion Administration Building Boardroom. We had a number of presentation topics. The first on global studies. Ms. Barbara Giorgio, Supervisor of English, Social Studies, Art, and Music, and Ms. Jill Knight, Lower Merion High School Social Studies Department Chair, presented a proposal for a global studies course sequence, Global Studies 1 and 2, which would replace African and Asian Studies taken in grade 9 and Western Civilization taken in grade 10. Ms. Giorgio discussed the need for our history and social studies courses to be more globally centered and to take on more of a world versus a westernized view. Major concerns regarding this curriculum change presented to the committee included major portions of the world not being studied, for example, Latin America, the shift academically from teaching from a westernized perspective of history to a more inclusive and integrated approach to history and cultures, the work the district has done with Dr. Malefi Asante that compels school districts to develop curriculum that is more globally and culturally connected, and finally develop students thinking to think beyond a Western perspective and engage in the world in culturally and interconnected ways. Ms. Giorgio has, with the faculty in social studies as well as the high school principals, has held focus groups and developed research teams to decide the best direction to move forward with this major curriculum change, using the four Pennsylvania social studies standards as a guideline and contextualize the work that will be done. The proposed timeline for Global 1 is the 2015-16 academic year, and Global Studies 2, the 2016-17 year academic year. The social studies team will come back to committee with a full formal course proposal, including text selection, other course-related resources, and costs in the upcoming months. There were 2 course proposals on the agenda. However, the first, Technology for Today, was not formally proposed at this time. Since Dr. Marseille informed the committee there were additional staffing implications that needed to be considered before the proposal was ready for committee consideration. The secondary team will present this proposal in the upcoming months. Mr. Brian Cody and faculty from the Business, Computer, and Information Technology Department presented the committee with the second course, Advanced Entrepreneurship. Mr. Cody stated that this course would introduce students to the essential components of a practical business plan and challenge them to start entrepreneurial ventures while still in high school. The committee was also presented with a presentation from Mr. Rich Sedmak from the Startup Core Program through University of Pennsylvania, which has worked directly with our students enrolled in the beginning entrepreneurship course, helping them develop their understanding of entrepreneurship, develop their ideas into viable small businesses. Textbook and e-textbooks through 2017 and related resources are estimated at a cost of $3,460. The committee agreed to move this course proposal for full board consideration tonight and looks forward to the revised Technology for Today course proposal as well. And finally, the committee was updated from Dr. Jerry Fitzpatrick Doria on the Elementary Schedule Advisory Committee's progress. Committee has met 3 times and has an additional 3 meetings scheduled through the end of November, December, to discuss the various issues related to the when or what I need time for the elementary schools. Dr. Doria shared that she was excited about the level of energy and critical thought being brought to this important topic, and the committee looks forward to future updates on the Elementary Schedule Committee's work and recommendations. Thank you. Next meeting, Tuesday, December 3rd, 8:30 a.m. in this room.
The Educational Services action items, Dr. Marseille.
Thank you. The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the adoption of the new high school business course, Advanced Entrepreneurship, which includes textbooks, additional materials, and resources estimated at $3,460 per exhibit CS-1.
Just a quick question. We talked about in the curriculum committee meeting a sense of the gentleman from Startup Corps was coming in as a consultant, and we talked about whether we could get an estimate on what that time would look like, and is that not available yet?
And that's not available yet, but Mr. Sedmak has been instrumental in helping us think differently about our courses. That course will run whether we bring him on board or not, but we will submit a proposal to the board with regards to cost for his consulting fees.
Are there any other questions? Do you have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion passes.
The administration recommends that the Board of Directors approves the addendum to the Silver Point contract per Exhibit CS-2. Silver Point provides website development, software licenses, and maintenance and support services for the district at a cost of $100 per month.
Are there any questions? Do you have a motion to approve?
So move.
Thank you. Do you have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion passes.
The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the overnight trip request as per Exhibit CS-3.
Any questions? Do you have a motion to approve? Thank you. Do you have a second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion passes.
Under Student Services, the administration recommends the Board of School Directors approve student service items as listed. These are agreements for students receiving non-school district educational services per Exhibit SS1 through SS4.
Do you have a motion to approve? Do you have a second? Second. Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes.
Next is the report of the Facilities and Purchasing Committee. Mr. Novick.
Thank you, Dr. McGinley. The Facilities Committee met on Thursday morning, July 11th at 8 a.m. All agenda items, including...
November.
I'm sorry, November 14th. November 14th at 8 a.m. All agenda items, including the list of bills and the purchasing report, were reviewed and discussed. Among the highlights addressed during the meeting, one, the elementary and middle school expansions. The contract for the permanent off-site construction of new classrooms at Penn Valley has been signed, and the contractor is supposed to be mobilizing this week with completion anticipated for June of 2014. Gladwin Elementary School, the rebids are due on November 20th. The board award is due to be given in December 2013 if everything goes according to schedule. Ballackinwood Middle School, the new classrooms have been completed, but we're still waiting for a final township certificate of occupancy for the classrooms. The new secured entry offices have been complete since the beginning of school. Welsh Valley, plans are being submitted for land development approval from the township for the January 2014 meeting, with planned bid award to be given in March 2014. And the bid packages themselves will go out in January of 2014 to keep in that schedule. We had a discussion about the high school enrollment projections. We need a fifth classroom. If we go with the proposal tonight at the DAO building at an additional cost of $190,000. We had some lengthy discussions about a number of topics, including As I just mentioned, the adequacy of the number of science classrooms, the adequacy of security in passing large numbers of students back and forth between the high school building and the DAO, the lack of physical barriers from outsiders getting in with, again, large number of students moving back and forth, passing time issues between classes when they're in different buildings, lack of incorporation of a new bus lot and additional operating costs into the cost discussion. We had additional discussions on other lesser issues, which I won't get into here, and that was it.
Your Business Office and Finance, we have 5 recommended action items. There's actually 1 on the addendum, 2 that I'm going to go over. I'm going to take them all in one motion unless the board would like me to separate any of the items. Okay. Following items recommended for action: approve the list of bills for payment, approve the financial report for October 2013, accept the audit report from Rayner & Company for the financial statements and single audit report for Lower Merion School District for the year ending June 30th, 2013, declare the items as surplus property as an Exhibit BF-1, and the administration recommends the Board of School Directors approve the waiver of account, receipt, release, indemnification agreement, and acknowledgement of charitable use with PNC Bank for the Lee Scott Rube Memorial Fund, which exists to grant scholarships to Harrington High School senior players on varsity boys and girls basketball teams.
And that last item's on the addendum.
Correct.
Are there any questions? Do you have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Well, can I have 1 second? For the past year and a half, I was either co-chair or chair of finance, and I had the good fortune to work with Mr. Orlando. And I just want to thank him for all his hard work, and it was a pleasure working with you, even though you're a St. Joe Hawk fan.
We'll see what happens on December 7th. Okay. Thank you very much for those wonderful comments. Under the facilities and operations, we have 3 recommended action items. Approve the agreement with the Montgomery Early Learning Center. That's an Exhibit FO-1. Approve the receipt of approval for Plan Con Part D for the Walsh Valley Middle School project. That's an Exhibit FO-2. And acknowledge receipt of approval of Plan Con Part E for the Walsh Valley Middle School. That's an Exhibit FO-3.
Are there any questions? Do you have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we now move on to the Board of School Directors business. We're going to begin with old business regarding the Policy Committee. Suba Robinson will give that report.
Thank you, Dr. Gilbert. Up for a first reading, actually, these are the minutes from the Policy Committee meeting of November 8th, 2013 at 8:30 in this room. Up for a first reading are Policy 108, which details the texts and textbooks provided to students K through 12. Policy 110, instructional supplies. This policy details the instructional supplies that are provided free of charge to students K to 12, and also states that if a student is allowed to keep the item, for example, calculators, then the cost is spread out to the family. Policy 007, board meetings. This policy is being brought back to a first read to reflect a change to the agenda and procedures for public comment. Specifically, we added board presentation and honors before audience recognition on agenda items. It was originally brought to the committee to reflect changes in policy regarding public recording of meetings. Up for a second read, and we need board approval for these, is Policy 107. This policy provides that course guides will be made available to students prior to signing up for courses. And Policy 815, smoking policy. This policy was changed to include e-cigarettes as part of the group of items not permitted on school premises. Do you want to do that?
Oh, sorry. Thank you very much, Suba. So we're going to take a vote now on the second reading of Policy 107, and policy 815, unless anybody wants to do them separately. Are there any questions? Do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Second. Thanks, Suba. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. Thank you. Okay, I'm now going to read the following statement. The Board of School Directors reinstates the high school choice area boundaries as set forth in Administration Regulation Number 206, as Administration Regulation Number 206 existed immediately prior to January 12, 2009, per Exhibit BD6. This will be effective for the incoming freshman class for the 2014-2015 school year. Are there any comments or questions first?
Yeah, it's listed as a recommended action by administration. I would like to know the basis of that recommendation, because I don't think the administration has ever come out and said this is our recommendation.
This is the recommended action of the Board of School Directors. This is not a recommended action. This section of the agenda is not our section of the agenda.
Okay. So recommended on what, I'm just asking procedurally on what basis? Or you're just saying, put it out there, we're going to vote on it shortly.
Right. Well, we've had months of discussion of various issues connected with this proposed recommendation.
Okay.
Jerry, are you asking if this is a recommendation by the administration?
Well, I think we just heard the answer to that. I was asking that question, yes.
I didn't understand the answer to that. I'm sorry.
This recommendation was initiated by members of the board, and it is listed as a recommendation under the board section of the agenda. I have on various times talked about this as being what I see as a logical and cost-effective method of accommodating the student population growth. I've said that in meetings over the past year, really, in various sets of circumstances. I've never given an opinion about the timing of the resolution, but I've given information as requested by various board members over a period of many, many months on this very resolution that first appeared on an agenda and then was tabled months and months ago.
Thank you for the clarification.
So this is a recommended action by the president? Because the board hasn't voted on it to make it a recommended action.
Right.
By
The board has the authority to enter, and Ken, you could clarify this, to place items on the agenda for board consideration.
That's correct. The agenda is prepared by the superintendent with consultation from the board president, according to policy 007.
Thank you. That was my question.
So I'm going to, unless there's any other comments or questions, I'm going to call for a motion to approve. Do you want to make an additional motion, Diane?
Yeah, I do, actually.
That's why I was waiting to see if you were going to do that.
Excuse me, President Gilbert.
Well, I know, that's why I'm trying to figure out.
President Gilbert,
Yes.
you would request a motion and a second, and then if there's amendments to that motion, they can come forward at that time.
Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to request, so this is, as I read it, a motion to approve. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Do I have a motion now to amend it, which is what I'm expecting?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like to make that motion?
Yes, I would. First, a couple of comments. As discussed this evening and many meetings prior, some attended by a lot of people, some attended by almost no one, some on, some recorded, some not. But we've been talking about this for a long time, and we've received a number of versions of projections, and I caution people of the public to take with a grain of salt some of the statements made by other members of the public as statements of fact, because people will have different understandings of what is in fact and what is fact and what is not. The key to this, to my recommended amendment, is a couple of things. Number one, the fact that once we got a look at the projections, if we waited 2 years, whether that would affect the ability to phase in expansion of choice. There's no negative effect by waiting 2 years on the numbers. Harrit maintains its numbers. It stays below 1,400. LM continues to increase, but not to such an extreme that we're forced to make renovations to the administration building. People have talked about the value of an outside consultant coming in and giving us projections. The system that was used to make the projections prior to the decision on the 2 high schools is the same method that the consultant did. It was just done by our then business manager instead of the consultant. But the method is exactly the same. So whether it was done by an outside consultant or whether it was done by inside knowledgeable individual, the result would have been the same. The reason that's important is because it speaks to the imprecision of trying to project into the future where the numbers are going to be and how they're going to grow. So the numbers were used the best methodology available at the time, which is the same methodology that is available now, to make projections for a time 5, 6, 7 years in the future. Could not have anticipated the real estate market crash and the subsequent economic crash, the change in independent school enrollment, the closings. I mean, we've gone through this. There's a list of 4 or 5 or 6 different things that all combine together in a sort of perfect storm to push our numbers up. The second fact that's been stated as a fact, but again is misleading, is that the children are here now. The kids are here now in our buildings who will be in our high schools in 5 or 6 years. This is just not true. If you look at our current 5th grade and you compare it to the projection for the year they are in 9th grade, the numbers are very different. It assumes a certain number of children are coming into the district that makes that class smaller or larger. And that is true of every single year. So every single year, our projections project an increase in student population, an increase in the number of students who are not here now. And the longer you go out, the greater that number is. So those students are not here now. Some of them are, but not all of them. So I want to use the word alchemy, but the methodology for trying to project is a very proven, sensible way to try and project. But even our consultants have said 1 year out, 1% variance. 3 years out, 4% variance. I mean, or 2.5% variance. 5 years out, 4.2% or something to that effect. Even our professionals say that 5 years out, there's close to 5% variance possible in what they've projected and what we actually have. So my proposal, it takes into account all this information and many other issues that we've discussed in the past. It takes into account the recommendations of many of our civics and tries to approach this in a little more measured way. And so let's nibble at this and see what happens before we dive in and potentially run the risk of very lopsided schools. And no matter how much this board sitting here commits to equal programming, the board who is sitting here 4 years from now, 3 of whom are clearly not going to be here of the people sitting here, the board that's here 4 years from now, when those numbers are potentially way out of balance, can say, you know what, I know that's what they said, but it's too expensive. It's too expensive to run physics, electromagnetism, and optics every year at Harrington. It's too expensive to run these 3 courses. We're going to run them every other year. It's too expensive to do this. And they could change it. Just as right now this board is recommending that we change a promise that was made by the CAC. So you can't, a sitting board cannot promise the actions of a future board. So while we are committed, all of us sitting here are committed to making sure that those 2 schools are equal, the board that's sitting here in 4 years may not be. And that's when it's going to take effect. So what I would like to recommend as a compromise is that we hold this major decision for 2 years, with the exception that we expand the walk zone, not the choice area. We expand the walk zone in Ardmore from Athens Avenue to County Line Road, which would encompass that entire area of South Ardmore. Those students, because they are now in the walk zone of Lower Merion High School, would have choice to walk to Lower Merion or get a bus to Harrington. This compromise addresses the issue of people have talked a lot about, my kid can walk to school, why aren't they not allowed to walk? Well, here we are. Let's allow them to walk. It addresses the issue of buses. It gets very complicated. Having choice makes the busing very complicated. This makes it very clear. If you want a bus, you don't want to walk to school, great. Go to Harrington. It's 10 minutes longer on the bus. If you want, if walking is an important value for you, and for me it is an important value, then walk to LN. So just to summarize, my what is it I'm looking for?
You are
amending?
proposing an amendment to the motion to state the following.
Sorry, the whole legalese thing. All right.
That's what I'm here for. Don't
yes,
worry.
and that's why we love you, Ken. The amendment I am proposing is that we delay this decision for 2 years, with the exception of expanding the walk zone in Ardmore to County Line Road. So I would like to recommend that we have that amendment.
So before it gets voted on, there needs to be a second, correct, Ken? So
Correct.
is there anyone who is looking to second that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, so I just want to be very clear what we're voting on right now.
Can we have I have a question about the motion, if I may?
Sure.
Diane, since we're just talking about this tonight, do you have any sense of the impact on the numbers?
Only the numbers that I, a non-hired consultant, have worked out, and I've played around with the numbers. I have more spreadsheets on my computer that I have generated than you can possibly imagine. But in getting numbers from Dr. McGinley regarding how many students are in that area, and in assuming that this would be a phased-in, next year it'll be the 9th graders, the following year it'll be 9th and 10th, the following year 9th, 10th, and 11th, and so on. I think the number was 116 students are in that box, if you look at the map, of which approximately, and this was not an exact number, 16 more or less, attend Lower Merion for reasons of any one of a number of reasons why students are granted attendance boundary exceptions. So that brings the number to 100. If we extrapolate that out, that's 25 students to a grade. I mean, this is really, and if we look at the 60-40 number, now we're talking about, 15, 20, somewhere, I don't know, 18 students per year more at LM and fewer at Harrington. So it does throw the numbers off a little bit in terms of balance, but in my opinion, it's not a huge number. And while I think we should be waiting completely for 2 years, that is my preference. I understand that you know, given from what everybody else has said in the past, I'm willing to make a compromise to get a consensus on the board. I think it would be very valuable for the community as well as the board if we could get as many board members in agreement on this, but I can't vote to change it all now. The potential for disaster is just too great.
Is there anybody who would like to make a comment before we vote? I'd like to make a point of clarification. So I want to understand that what you're asking to do is to tell the children of Ardmore that they will not get bus service in the same distance as children from other communities.
No, actually, that's not correct, because
how would that
as
not be
was
correct?
pointed out many times by the community, our policy has bus service within a mile. And the walk zone to a high school is within a mile. And County Line Road is just a hair over a mile to Lower Merion. So most of those kids would fall anyway under that 1 mile radius. And those who don't and feel that that's a hardship are welcome to go to Harrington.
So, but you're not proposing that we expand the area of the walk area for around every school, correct?
Correct, because I think I'm trying to find a compromise which will not potentially throw us into a situation where if we go to what you've recommended here, and things go back to what's historical, the numbers go to the historic numbers, we could be looking at a 75-25 split, the numbers of which I don't have handy in front of me.
I just asked for the clarification on what your walk zone proposal is.
I know, and I know you're trying to make me out like I'm not worried about everybody in this district. And
I'm just asking you what your
and
proposal is, Diane.
Well, I'm feeling like I need to be clear that this is an attempt at a compromise between two disparate opinions. So no, it does not include everybody. If it included everybody, then I would just vote for the recommendation that you have on the table.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to ask the administration's opinion, if possible, on the recommendation or on the amendment that Diane has proposed.
I didn't see this until about 3:30, 3:45 this afternoon, so I have done no projections on it. I have no opinion about what it does to the numbers. I was about to just push my mic just to make sure that we're clear. The county line reference, you mean the boundary of the township, right? Just to be clear, yes, rather than saying county line, because County Line Road kind of isn't always the accurate boundary.
Oh.
So.
Yes, but. So yes, thank you for that clarification.
Okay, so at this point, what we're going to do is we are going to vote on the amended proposal. So the amended proposal as...
The vote is on whether or not the original motion is to be amended. That's the vote.
Thank you, that's helpful. So we're voting on whether we are going to allow the original proposal to be amended. Can we have a voice? Thank you.
Sure. Ms. Pollard?
I need to be clear.
So a no vote means that you don't want the original motion to be amended. A yes vote means that you do want Ms. DeBonaventuro's motion to become the motion that everybody's going to discuss and vote on.
Okay. No. Ms. Robinson?
I vote no.
Dr. Golden?
No.
Ms. Kugel?
Yes, and I appreciate the opportunity or the thought that has gone into trying to reach a consensus building opportunity.
Mr. Freelander?
I vote yes.
Mr. Novick?
Yes.
Ms. Di Bonaventura,
Yes.
Dr. Van Lynch,
No.
Dr. Golden. Oh, I have Golden. Gilbert, sorry.
This is what happens with
That's
us,
my
right?
fault. It's been a long night.
No.
We have 5 noes and 4 yeses.
So Ken, just so I don't, we're now at the point where we need to vote on the original proposal, correct?
You're correct. You're voting on the original motion.
Okay, the original motion. Ms. LaPera, can we have a
One
voice?
question. Do you want comments at vote, or do you want comments before the vote? I have some comments.
I think many of us have comments at vote, but however you want to do it.
Yeah, fine.
And should we discuss first?
We're going to do the comments at voting, I think, unless you want to discuss. That's what we just said, but that's fine. However everybody wants to do it.
They want to discuss. I mean, I hate to close off.
That's what I'm
discuss-
asking, Lynn, is if people want to comment now or not. So if you'd like to comment, go ahead. Are you asking to comment? I'm sorry.
I heard 2 of my colleagues ask about discussing.
No,
No, we're going to give our comments during our vote.
Okay, let me start this over again. Is there anyone who would like to comment now? Okay, in that case, we'll move on to the vote. Ms.
Okay,
LaPera,
thank
can
you.
we do another?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Robinson,
I vote yes, and I'd like to make a comment. This has been a long process, which began in May 2012. We've seen the actual numbers of students are running slightly ahead of the DeJong-Healy projections. As opposed to using internal numbers, we hired outside consultants and fully vetted the numbers. We've delayed decisions to allow for additional community input. We've had community input over the last year, as well as confirmed our outside consultants' projection methodology with additional consultations. I'm personally not worried that Harriton will become under-enrolled as Gladwin, Penn Valley, and Welsh Valley are bursting at the seams with students. There are other ramifications of the projections that need to be tackled over time and with foresight, but this decision to expand the choice area is an important first step. I'm hoping that in addition to changing the choice zone, it also begins the steps to heal the rift that Ardmore and other communities feel. Thank you.
Just so we're all clear, what you're stating right now during your speeches is how you plan to vote when the vote is taken. This isn't actually, you're not actually casting your vote when you make your speeches.
In the past, we have, Ken.
There may be there may be an opportunity for people to deliberate. So just, that's the technically correct way to do it, that's all. No, everybody can go around the table and say how they plan to vote, and then you call the vote and everybody votes.
It'll make the vote that much quicker.
okay, so we don't do a roll call?
I'll do my part now if you,
Yeah, she's.
Okay, so do I have to record this?
Keep going.
Okay. Dr. Golden.
I also support the proposal to restore the high school choice attendance zone to its pre-2008 configuration, and I'd also like to make a few comments. For the last 10 months, I've listened carefully and, for anyone who knows me, remarkably patiently, both to the administration's presentations, which I can do in my sleep, and the public's comments, including at Trader Joe's, Acme, the soccer field, and everywhere else where I've had listened to what people have to say about this decision. I've listened to the arguments, and I want to briefly go over a few of them. The first is that Harriton will be too small. At present, Gladwin Elementary School has 703 children in it. They will all go to Harriton. There's no way that Harriton will get any smaller until those first graders are seniors in high school, which is 11 years from now. So I'm confident that Harriton will be right size for at least 11 years. The second argument is that Lower Merion will become too big. That is also not true. When the DAO, this building, was renovated in 2010, it was designed to accommodate 21 classrooms, so there's plenty of room here. As well, if we compare Lower Merion High School or Harriton High School to our peer institutions, including Salon in Ohio, the only team that beats us at the Science Olympiad, or Chappaqua in New York, or Scarsdale in New York, or New Trier in Illinois, or Adlai Stevenson in Illinois, any of our peer high schools, Lower Merion, no matter at its peak enrollment, would still fall well within the range of high school population for excellent, high-achieving high schools. The most recent argument that's been made is that we should restore choice to Ardmore only and not to the rest of the choice zone. If there's any lesson we learned during the 2008-2009 redistricting, is that it's neither fair nor appropriate to single out any individual community or neighborhood to bear the burden of district policies. Not Ardmore, not Narberth, not Penwyn. But more to the point, there is no longer a need for those communities, Narberth, Ardmore, part of Penn Valley now, to carry the district on their backs. So in my view, these problems are made by people flailing for reasons to oppose a sound plan, and they are not compelling. But the reason I'm voting for this plan is the same reason I supported the plan when we began our discussion a year ago. In 2004, the Community Advisory Committee underestimated the student population of the Lower Merion School District, and a previous board based their policy decisions on those numbers, which have turned out to be erroneous. Based on those erroneous estimates, they voted to adopt a plan of forced busing. That busing is no longer needed to achieve the goal of 2 right-sized high schools. That is why we are restoring choice, because redistricting is no longer necessary. There is no reason to wait. There is no reason to continue to burden the redistricted communities when the goals of redistricting can be achieved without redistricting. And I strongly believe that the restored high school choice zone will improve both the educational and holistic experiences of all students in both high schools, because nobody will be there involuntarily, and that will create a more positive learning environment at both schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kugel?
Thank you. As with all decisions that the school board confronts, there are many competing factors that must be considered in making a decision tonight. There have been many misrepresentations, outright misstatements of fact and the like before this meeting tonight, and I'm not going to delve into them, but it's really disheartening to hear so many mischaracterizations of the process that has happened openly at this board over the past several years. The decision before the board tonight was prompted by enrollment projections showing Harriton High School exceeding its capacity in the immediate future. As the enrollment projections have been refined and further studied, it has become clear that the data shows Lower Merion exceeding its capacity well in advance of Harriton High School reaching its limit. To put in motion at this juncture a strategy that moves students from Harriton High School, not at capacity, to Lower Merion, which will be over capacity, is not supported by the data and real enrollment projections that have been put before this board. The current best enrollment projections show that it is at best premature to enact a plan to move students from Harriton High School to Lower Merion based on enrollment. Moving students at this time cannot be based on statistics and data. Such a decision will exacerbate overcrowding and limit opportunities and logistics for students at Lower Merion, while also jeopardizing a full academic and co-curricular program at Harriton High School. The data speaks clearly and strongly. It is not the time based on data. And there may be other reasons why people would support this plan, but if you're looking to support a plan based on data, this is not the plan.
She didn't give me her choice.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have
Keep going, keep going.
Okay. Mr. Freelander?
Forgive me, I have a cold and I'm having trouble talking. But it won't stop me. There are 3 topics which I would like to address this evening. The first issue is the process. I have several issues with the process as it's occurred for this issue. First, throughout my career, I have been trained to view problems in the following manner. Identify the issue. In this situation, the identified issue is that enrollment projections suggest there is a potential for overcrowding at Howardin and Lower Merion high schools. The next step in the process is to identify solutions to the issue. In this instance, the solutions are to build at Howardin, renovate the DAO building, or wait at least 2 years to ensure that the projections prove to be accurate. The final step is to debate the alternatives and reach a final decision. I do not believe that the above described process has been followed in this instance. After having policy and committee meetings on the projected overcrowding and Policy 206, the board on 2 occasions scheduled a vote on a proposal to expand the Lower Merion High School choice zone. The first vote was set for March, I believe, and the second vote was set for May. What is troubling about this process is that the board was twice poised to vote on this proposal without any identification or discussion of any feasible alternate solutions. At no time prior to either scheduled vote was crucial information presented regarding the DAO option. The board would have voted with no knowledge of cost, scope of project, or whether the township was likely to grant any necessary approvals. Moreover, it should also be noted that in each instance, the board was relying on projected expanded choice enrollments that were incorrect and have subsequently been revised on several occasions to correct methodological and numerical errors. My other concern with the process is the nature of the meetings held on this issue. First, I would like to address the issue of the number and types of meetings that we have had. References have been made to the fact that there were 24 meetings held on this topic. Though there were numerous meetings, a significant number of the early meetings focused on the enrollment projections themselves in Policy 206 and not the solution to best address projected overcrowding at the high school. Of those that did touch on this topic, my issue with these meetings is as follows. Many of the meetings were in committee. Many of the meetings were held at 8:30 a.m., and many of these meetings were not taped. Because these were policy meetings, many residents were unaware that there could be a restructuring of the attendance boundaries. It was not until May that the administration began the process of accumulating information regarding alternatives. This was prompted by the list of questions I developed regarding the Lower Merion site. Once again, a majority of these meetings where this information was presented were general committee meetings which largely occur in the morning and addressed a broader agenda. Moreover, the meetings were not advertised as addressing the redistricting issue. This situation is best demonstrated by the October 23rd meeting, which was intended to serve as a public hearing on the matter. Because it was advertised as a communications meeting, many people in our community were not even aware that redistricting was the topic of conversation. Thus, though there were many meetings, I would disagree that these meetings informed the public about the various alternatives, provide them the opportunity to comment, or provide an insight into the thinking of the board members. The redistricting proposal being voted on tonight is a critical issue which will have a long-term impact on the district. In the past, when an important issue faced the district, we had specially designated meetings for this issue alone. These meetings were not held in committee, they were not held in the morning, and they were not part of a larger agenda. Two such instances involve the high school construction projects and the 2009 high school redistricting plan. This is the model that should have been adopted by the administration in this instance. The second issue, the prudent action would be to delay making this decision for at least 2 years. The high school enrollment projections clearly and unequivocally demonstrate that we do not need to make this decision tonight. We can wait 2 years. The district's enrollment projection methodology shows that starting the phase-in of expanded choice in 2016-2017 does a better job at managing enrollments than starting at 2014-2015. Starting in 2016-17 does just as good a job at preventing overcrowding at Howardin as commencing now and does a better job of avoiding overcrowding at Lower Merion. Additionally, weighting also increases the district's flexibility to adjust the choice area expansion, if necessary, to account for how enrollment growth actually materializes over the next 2 years rather than simply relying on projections. No information was presented that indicates that a 2-year delay would be detrimental to the district. Some board members have contended that a 2-year delay will result in possible redistricting at Harridan. Nothing could be further from the truth. The numbers presented by the district disprove this. The numbers presented by Diane D. Bonaventura disprove this, and the numbers provided by Dr. Todd Sinai disprove this. In fact, the only situation where redistricting comes into play is if we vote to expand choice tonight and the enrollment projections do not come to fruition. Then there will be a huge disparity between the student populations at the 2 high schools. This could result in Lower Merion being grossly overpopulated and Harridan being underpopulated. Then the district will be forced to redistrict. Next, the administration has provided some cost estimates for the DAO and Harridan alternatives. A review of that information would lead one to conclude that the DAO alternative is less expensive and that it would be fiscally irresponsible not to adopt that plan. However, we are nowhere close to knowing the ultimate cost of the DAO alternative. Since May, the costs associated with the DAO alternative have continued to grow, and new cost items have been added as recently as last week. As of Thursday, November 14th, we learned of the need for another science lab at Lower Merion with a cost of approximately $200,000 and for 2 security personnel to monitor the flow of students between the main building and the DAO with an unspecified cost. And there are other unknown costs associated with parking, staffing, and security. In truth, we are being asked to vote on a proposal that requires a blank check from the taxpayers. By waiting 2 years, the district will have firmer cost estimates for each alternative. That would be the fiscally prudent decision and in the best interest of the district. In addition to dollars and cents, there are other critical issues that have not yet been explored. There are 2 types of assets, tangible and intangible. The tangible are those dollar costs associated with each project. The intangible assets do not have a dollar value, however, they are equally as important. I believe it is important from an educational perspective that we understand which of these 2 alternatives would be best for all the students. We should know which alternative best delivers equal education programming, and we should know which alternative will be least disruptive to the students of this district. Thus, because the administration's enrollment projections indicate we can proceed slowly, coupled with the number of unanswered questions relating to the cost and educational programming, it is in the district's best interest to delay this decision for 2 years. The third point, why are we deciding now? If it is too early to decide, why are we deciding this issue tonight? It is simple. The whole process is motivated by board members who wish to undo the redistricting plan of 2009. When I was elected to the school board, existing school board members stressed the importance of making decisions that are in the best interest of the entire district. This decision at this point in time is not in the best interest of the district. Future high school enrollment estimates are based on projections. As the projections go out further into the future, they become less reliable. By deciding now, we are basing our decision on enrollment projections that may not come to fruition. If the projections prove to be inaccurate, it could be catastrophic to the district. The disparity in student population between the 2 high schools can become huge and revert back to the situation that existed prior to the construction of the 2 new high schools. As noted above, this could result in the need to redistrict again. By waiting 2 years, we can utilize more accurate enrollment figures. Making a decision now is not fiscally responsible. At this point in time, we do not have a complete picture of the total cost associated with the projects. Additionally, we do not know what the township will require in order to accommodate the increased population at Lower Merion. By waiting 2 years, we will not only understand costs, but also the requirements of the township. This decision goes beyond restoring boundaries. If a premature decision is made, it will have long-term implications. If you want to do what's best for the entire district, the most prudent course of action is to delay the decision for 2 years.
Mr. Novick?
Thank you. I'm glad we waited to vote because I think I'll get some new votes. Turn the other way. Just a couple of pre-comments to my comments. Now the public can see why there are 31 flavors when you walk into Baskin Robbins. We all see the same meetings, the same presentation, same facts, and obviously we view them from vastly different perspectives. While I think we're about to make a mistake moving forward, I do appreciate the lively discussion and the debate. I think it's very healthy. I do want to point out one thing to you, Marissa. The 2004 estimates were not erroneous. I think you said that several times. They were not erroneous. Just because you have an estimate where the numbers don't come out as you projected doesn't make the projections erroneous. The projections were good projections. It just shows the opposite. It shows how unreliable projections are, especially in the long term. So I hope you take that into account when you listen to my comments. I have two sets of topics to address here. One set is about process, and the other is about substance. First, the process. There's an old saying that goes as follows. If it looks like a duck, swims like a duck, and quacks like a duck, then it's probably a duck. Let's see what we have here. Our consultants have projected an increase in student enrollment in the years ahead. So the proper inquiry before the board should have been simply, how should the district handle the projected enrollment increase in the high schools? Very simple. If that were the case, we would have something that looked like a duck, that walked like a duck, and quacked like a duck. Something that properly framed the inquiry before the board. It's very important how you frame an inquiry like this. But inexplicably, to this board member at least, the inquiry before us was phrased as whether school choice should be expanded to accommodate the projected high school enrollment increases. Sounds to me like putting an answer before the inquiry. So we now have something that looks like a duck but barks like a dog. Is it a duck or is it a dog or something else yet? In my 12 years as a board member, for important inquiries like deciding how to handle a projected increase in enrollment in the high schools like we have in front of us now, we would have had a series of meetings titled in the name of the inquiry so that our constituency, the people that pay the bills and consume our services, could look at a meeting schedule and easily see that the meeting is about the subject at hand. But once again, inexplicably, we decided, based upon the administration's recommendation and actually supported by a majority board vote, to instead spread this important information over a series of disconnected committee and business meetings. So now we have something that looks like a duck, barks like a dog, but swims like a fish. What is it? I'll come back to that question later. Finally, we've been told repeatedly that this is not a redistricting, but rather just a restoration of choice to certain areas of the district. Remember, if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it must be a duck. Call it what you will, but this option sure looks, walks, and sounds like a redistricting to me, a complete unwind of the changes made to support equal populations at the two high schools, a solution recommended by the 45-member Community Advisory Committee established by the board in January 2004. And that recommendation had nothing to do with the estimates. They recommended 2 equal high schools. So, is it a redistricting or isn't it? Is it a duck, a dog, a fish, or now something completely different? What's my bottom line? Procedurally, we missed the boat. And this completely excludes the originally rushed process that we had set up last winter, but before we rightfully decided in May to step back and take a more careful look. The second set of topics I'd like to address pertain to substance. Here are a few observations by this board member. Yes, we have a projected increase in enrollment in the high schools. Yes, I understand that the district is unable to wait until the population crush is upon us to plan for it. And yes, I understand and appreciate the scores of hours of hard work put into this process by our administrators, third-party consultants, and board members. But we do not now have a crisis upon us, and we are by no means obligated to act now, nor is it wise to act now. First, the vote tonight is a manufactured urgency that unnecessarily accelerates a decision that could result in long-term harm to the district, both financially and educationally. By the administration's own estimates, Harriton will not hit its current unexpanded capacity until 2018, and by just 33 students at that, and Lower Merion not until 2015-16. Do we have a real problem then? Lower Merion's population overcapacity at that time will be slight, just 15 students. The following year, just 25. And the following year after that, just 62. Even assuming the small number of students cannot be accommodated in the existing high school building, they can easily be accommodated in just a few additional classrooms in the A building. In the administration's own words, quoted from one of the answers to the list of frequently asked questions on the district's website, and I quote, "It is difficult to predict enrollment beyond 5 years. This rule has been drilled into me over and over during my 12 years as a board member from annual student enrollment projections. The rule being that the further you go out, the less and less the projections are reliable. This is just common sense. And yet we are basing this entire decision on major projected enrollment increases that are not projected to hit the district for up to 8 years from now. Why are we placing so many bets now when the information we're betting on is least reliable? It makes no sense unless you knew the answer to your question before you started the process." The second substantive issue I'd like to address is educational impact. Once we take the step of undoing redistricting, it will be very difficult for this or any future board to undo it. What happened to the racial isolation issues we discussed so often during the redistricting process as one of several important elements of redistricting? This was an educational-based discussion, not even a mention during this process. What could be more important than the potentially adverse educational impacts of this proposed plan? How have they been and how will they be addressed? The third set of substantive issues I'd like to address are the cost estimates. A hot dog without a roll just ain't right. In this case, our hot dog consists of the cost estimates we keep hearing concerning the cost of building additional classrooms at each high school. And our bun consists of the off-site costs required to support those decisions. Well, you might be surprised. The cost of intensifying the use of Lower Merion High School, the population at Lower Merion High School, to 1,800 students could be extraordinary. Barely even discussed at the board table. While the exact costs are unknown, as I see them today, they will easily exceed the cost differential of building new classrooms at Harriton versus Lower Merion, but with a poor educational product. The buses at Lower Merion will have to be moved off-site to make room for new administrator and teacher parking. Unless and until pigs fly, we will not find new bus parking in Lower Merion, the most economical location for that purpose. Philadelphia is only slightly more likely. In other words, it's not going to happen. So where are we left with? Buying a site in Upper Merion, Plymouth Township, or some other remote area. The cost itself to buy an outfit for our use will be in the millions of dollars. And just as importantly, if not more importantly, our cost of operations will ultimately cost us millions more in increased time for bus drivers due to heavy traffic and distance. Think the Conshohocken Bridge at rush hour. And accelerated depreciation and wear and tear on our bus fleet. And there are other costs that I haven't even factored in here. Have we discussed this piece of the puzzle publicly yet? Not at once. And where do these costs appear in the different cost comparison scenarios that we've talked about at the board table tonight? Let me give you a hint. They don't. The fourth set of substantive issues I'd like to address are the educational impacts of the proposed redistricting. Increased passage times between classes, disjointed schedules involving two unconnected buildings not designed for that purpose. We have barely scratched the surface of that discussion. It sounds like we're going back in time before the new buildings were built. Who here remembers those discussions? And finally, the security concerns. We've made great strides in adding additional static security measures to our school buildings by keeping our students in a single building, requiring all outsiders to pass through a secure area in order to gain entrance. We talked about one earlier tonight, Walsh Valley, where we just provided an exterior secure entrance. We've heard that this arrangement, proposed arrangement, having students walking freely between buildings will not increase our security risks at all, but I disagree. We are now exposing larger populations of students in 2 different buildings that will generally have to be open during every period change, without the need to enter or exit through a controlled space. This is something that should absolutely be discussed at length with a professional before undertaking this significant change. So now I'll come back to the question I asked earlier. If the process we undertook looks like a duck, barks like a dog, but swims like a fish, what is it? If we vote yes tonight, there can only be one conclusion. As I noted earlier, this was an answer to undue redistricting, looking for an inquiry. The projected enrollment increases provided the excuse. While I don't mind the majority of this board voting how they like to vote, even though I don't agree with it, I do mind the lack of transparency with the public. If we intended to restore the choice zone all along, we should have said so and then just voted accordingly. But there is no reason to do what we're proposing to do now because of the increased projections in attendance, and is best left for further exploration and deliberation. I'm happy not to be a part of that deliberation, as this is my last meeting as a board member, but delaying the vote is just the right thing to do. Further, it's important that we remember the basis for the CAC committee, the CAC committee's recommendations to the board in May 2004, and I quote from the report, "The CAC believes that this configuration, meaning 2 equal schools, will best serve the educational needs of the students and the best interests of this community." If we vote yes tonight, we're throwing out the baby with the bathwater and literally in one fell swoop undoing what the CAC committee so carefully and thoughtfully stitched together in 2004. In conclusion, we should not undertake this change. We should leave the districting as it stands now, and we should proceed cautiously with better data as time moves on, lest we make a very costly and permanent error. This district went through the redistricting process, a process led by our current superintendent, and spent thousands and thousands of administrative and board hours and more than $1 million out of pocket defending ourselves against baseless charges. Baseless charges, all the way to the highest court in the land. You had your time at the mic. That being said, and you might find this surprising, I really wouldn't have a problem with restoring the walk zone or any other solution if the substantive issues before us were fully vetted first and were the best solution for the district. But we're just not there yet, and we have more work to do. With our just completed traffic study, we've seen that with the completion of new classrooms at Harriton, we could be very, very close to satisfying township parking requirements and could perhaps get by with simply building out reserved parking areas, specifically left to be built for additional buses and cars should the need present itself in the future. There is more land for this purpose at Harriton than there is at Lower Merion. We must explore this option. If we have some additional busing needs that we cannot house on one of our properties, we can explore obtaining the services of an outside busing company to bridge the gap while we get through the worst of the projected increased high school enrollment. And one last thing. Let me state unequivocally that one of the last things I would do as a board member is to move more buses off the school sites. They have been greatly reduced in number on our school sites, but these locations are still by far the most economical locations for the storage of our buses. They are by far closest to where our students reside. Perhaps we modify some of the choice area changes to ease up on some of the additional population at Harriton that's coming down the road, a so-called mixed solution that will lever the advantages of both sites to the maximum advantage of the district. Only further study and review will tell. We owe this much to our students and to our constituents. We should not change our districting now, and therefore I suggest we vote no.
Ms. DiBonaventura.
Thank you. First, let me just quickly say, both Gary and Jerry, I thought your remarks were excellent. I agree with just about everything that you guys said. I think it's ironic that I am supporting the status quo, given I was one of 2 board members that voted against having this this redistricting plan as it is. I think there's a little irony going on here. But the reason is very clear. The CAC. I am humbled by the decision of the CAC, because at the time, the CAC brought their recommendation of 2 equal-size high schools to the district. I voted to accept their recommendation and move forward with it. But at the time, I thought, what's really the big deal? If one's bigger and one's smaller, it's really not that big a deal. But because 45 people spent 50 hours, I don't know how many hours, working out that decision, researching it, and coming up with a conclusion, they said 2 equal-size high schools was the way to go, so I approved that. And it turns out, now that I can look back and see that they were right. The difference in the 2 high schools between what it was like 6 or 7 years ago and what it's like now is huge. As much by perception, you know, the kids at Harriton, my kids went to Harriton when it was small. They had a great education. They did great things, but they were always considered the lesser sister. And now that the 2 schools are of equal size or close to equal size, the perception and the attitude is completely different. And so it turns out the CAC, in my view, was right. 2 equal high schools was really the way to go. And as both Jerry and Gary alluded to, if the decision that we were discussing here was whether we needed 2 equal-size high schools or whether we didn't, then that would be an honest conversation that we could have and decide. This board could decide, no, we don't need 2 equal-size high schools, or yes, we do. But that's not the decision we're looking at right now. We are looking at projections. We are using these projections to, as Jerry suggested, answer a question we already knew the answer to. I'm going to bore you for a minute, if you're not already bored, with some numbers. So the current 5th grade, and I just pulled these up out of the John Healy report, which is what the outside consultant upon which we're basing all these decisions, says that in 13-14, this school year, our current 5th grade is 609 students. By the time those students are in 9th grade, there will be 715. That's 96 students difference between what are in our building right now and what is projected to be in our buildings in 17-18 when those students are in 9th grade. If you look at 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, current 8th grade, based on the projections, which are different than what the reality is, but we'll just stick with one set of numbers because then it gets way too complicated. We're going to have 96 more 5th graders, 80 more 6th graders, 63 more 7th graders, and 42 more 8th graders who will compose the building, the high school building in 17-18. That's 281 more students in high school in 17-18 that are not in our buildings now. So where are these kids coming from? Well, we've talked about it. We've talked about it in the past. We say that the elementary schools, Gladwin in particular, is busting at the seams. Well, so is Penn Wynne right now, because the first and second, or kindergarten, first grade, or first and second grade were way over the projection for that building this year. The projection for LM, if we redistrict, or I'm sorry, if we expand the choice to what it was 5 years ago, next year, Lower Merion will be at 1785 if the 40-60 split, occurs. That is almost 1,800 students. There's a discussion, Mrs. Robinson mentioned it, about the projections are up based on, or the actual enrollment is up based on the projections. The actual enrollment at Lower Merion is up based on the projections. But the actual number at Harriton is or actually it's like a couple students less than what was projected. So Lower Merion, it appears, and it's only 2 years of data, is growing faster than expected, and Harriton is growing either at the same rate or slightly slower. So we're talking about making a decision with numbers that just can't support the decision. And then there's always the whole, since Jerry jumped on a couple little cliches there, I'll throw one in myself, is what goes up must come down. The projections have enrollment increasing every single year for 20 years. It might actually be 18, sorry for the exaggeration. 18 years. What goes up must come down. We cannot possibly sustain growth every single year over 18 years. And if we do, we're going to have bigger problems than what to do about these two high schools. So let me step away from that and switch to a different topic, which is this whole choice for expanding the choice zone out. It's not fair that some kids are bearing the decisions being made on the backs of some kids. And it was not, in my opinion, completely evaluated 5 years ago, and it's still not. Gladwin, Villanova, Bryn Mawr, Belmont Hills, parts of Haverford have never had choice. Those kids have to go to Harriton. They don't get to go to Lower Merion. And that is the language people use. Either they get to go to Lower Merion or they have to go to Harriton. And that language has kind of quieted down the last couple years. Now that the two buildings are close to the same, some kids are even saying, I get to go to Harriton. Unfortunately, if we go back and we expand choice out to the ranges that we're talking about, we're back into that I get to go to Lower Merion and I have to go to Harriton. How does that make the kids from Belmont Hills, Bryn Mawr, Villanova, and Gladwin feel? We talked about, somebody came up and spoke very eloquently a couple weeks ago about how the Ardmore kids feel like they're being forced places and they feel because they don't get choice. That really spoke to me, what that woman said. And I was feeling it for those students, but I was also feeling it for all the other kids who have never had choice. So why don't we wait and see what the numbers come, and maybe we can offer up choice to everybody. Wouldn't that be nice to have equality across the entire district? But we don't know. If we do this now, that's never going to be an option. If we wait 2 years and we phase it in starting in 2 years, at the expanded choice level or at some other level, our administration has more time to plan and prepare. They've not had a chance to get started on any of the work on the new schedule. LM's going to need a new bell schedule sooner rather than later because of the numbers. As Gary and Jerry spoke, we have not done enough work on knowledge of the facilities. I know the administration has tried really hard. We've been badgering them for information. They're trying to get that information together. At the same time, they're trying to run a district of 700 kids or 7,000 or 8,000. What are we at now? 702, 720, something like that. 7,000 students. And there's just not enough time to get this stuff ready for when the students come, if we make this decision now. We still don't know what the numbers are going to be. We're hoping that they play out the way they're projected. We don't know. 2 more years, we hire a new consultant. We get another set of numbers that are 4 years more current than the current numbers, because the current numbers are already 2 years old. And we plan based on what the real numbers are. Maybe Harriton stops growing or slows down. Maybe Lower Merion explodes. We talked about what happens when the Archdiocese sells the St. Charles Seminary property. What happens when the apartments at the corner of Lancaster and City Ave are fully developed? What happens when the Miriam estate becomes more apartments? What happens with other construction that's going around the township? We just don't know. Gary spoke about the intangibles. Okay, we've talked about numbers. I bored you to death with numbers. We've talked about projections and everything else. But the intangibles, having this, we just really have not had an in-depth conversation about what the intangible costs are. We talked about numbers. We haven't talked about the intangibles. And I think, we could very well be kicking ourselves in 3 years if we're not properly prepared for the changes in the numbers. I want to apologize to the folks who live north of Lower Merion High School that the compromise that I offered does not include them. And if there were a way, obviously, I would. But there's just, being on the school board is about making tough decisions. And to me, nibbling at this a little more slowly makes more sense. And so you got to pick an area to go. And I picked south. And, let's see what happens with Ardmore. The last thing I want to say is to the people that I ran with 2 years ago I ran for re-election, they ran for election in the first place. And over again, in everything, every coffee, every time we went around, we talked about making data-based decisions. We were going to make data-based decisions. We were going to make decisions based for the benefit of the entire community, not just some kids. And that we were not going to touch redistricting in any form unless and until there was compelling evidence that we needed to. And in my view, this is not a data-based decision. It's a decision about whether we want 2 equal high schools or not. We could have snipped this in the bud, said, look, this is a potential problem. Back in February or March, we could have said, this is a potential problem. It's not ripe to talk about. And we could have given the administration the entire year without having to think about this and stress about it. And, it's just not what I promised. And so, for me, I can't support this resolution as proposed, and I apologize.
Dr. Van Lynch.
I support the motion to reinstate the high school choice area boundaries as set forth in Administration Regulation 206. I ran for this board to serve all students and to bring my expertise to support the focus on teaching and learning in this district. For the past year, the excessive focus on enrollment, while certainly necessary, has taken the administration's time and this board's time dealing with an issue that, in my opinion, can be addressed directly this evening. Addressing this issue this evening rather than delaying indefinitely will allow the administration and the board to spend its time more effectively on behalf of the education of the students in this district who deserve our undivided time and attention. This issue has been deliberated publicly for nearly the last year. We have provided the public with presentation after presentation, all evidenced and research-based, and I realize the need to address this issue that confronts us head-on. I've heard the argument that with this vote, we are redistricting the school population. I submit that this decision does not redistrict anyone. As Policy 206 states, this decision reinstates the high school choice boundaries. Redistricting is defined as actively compelling one group of students to attend another school, as this board did 5 years ago. This decision, I feel, allows a phased-in approach to address an over-enrolled high school, or potentially over-enrolled high school Harriton. Over the last 2 months, I have sat through meetings that, to my amazement, have entertained the possibility of building at Harriton, despite the availability of classroom space in the DAO building, which, as many letters to the board over the last few weeks indicate, is a waste of tax dollars, among other things. Given the Dijon-Healy numbers, as well as the Sundance Group's review of those numbers, I feel compelled to vote yes. These consultants are experts in their in their respective fields on school population demographics, and as a board member, I've done my own due diligence to review these reports, ask pointed questions to the administration, and finally make an informed decision on behalf of all students and families in this community. I will also add that the Dijon-Healy numbers continue to be 2 to 3 percentage points over the original projections, and our school enrollment numbers continue to increase. I will close by sharing this. In October, I had the opportunity to attend the PSBA Leadership Conference in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and heard Pedro Noguera address the work we do as board members from the perspective of a teacher educator and an educational researcher. Noguera talked of the work of school boards as both technical and adaptive work. Technical work, as you might imagine, is related directly to the operations of the institution. Managing facilities is the best example that comes to mind. Adaptive work, on the other hand, is a focus on the dynamic and complex nature of the work, its substance, meaning, and purpose. In the case of school boards and administrations, the adaptive work is where we need to spend our time and energy, focusing on the students and their learning. Adaptive work begs a question that Noguera's research is built on. What do we need to do to get students excited about learning? This is a question I ask myself all the time as a board member and as a teacher educator. What does this work look like in our work as board members and as administrators? I vote yes to enable this board to refocus our attention on the adaptive work that will allow all of our students to get excited about learning and reach their highest level of achievement.
Thank you. Ms. Pollard?
I vote yes on the vote before us because leadership demands a head for the figures and a heart for the people. We have discussed over and over, and we've heard projections, and the projections are just that, projections. Projections can go one way, projections can go another way. And Dijon-Healy has let us know that as we are going forth and as we move forward, our projections are continuously growing, maybe not by leaps and bounds as we had thought in the beginning, but they're continuously growing. I am voting yes because I see this as an opportunity to bring healing to our community. I see this as an opportunity to be able to achieve goals that we set out to do, as achieving the achievement of the achievement gap. Also to get kids again excited about learning. We have young people that, because of the decisions that were made 5 years ago, that are not happy with their learning situations and really would like an opportunity to have an opportunity with their cohorts to be able to continue to grow and to learn in our situation. We are blessed here at Lower Merion because we have actually 2 high schools that will be able to present good education, excellent education to our young people. As a minister, I always try to relate the things that I do to Scripture. And with the projections, a story came to mind about whose report do you believe? There was a people that were wandering in the desert, and there were giants before them. And the report came back, can we go to the promised land? And many people, many of the surveillance people came back and said, no, you cannot go into the promised land because there are giants there. There were just a couple of people that said, we can take the giants. But the other people decided, no, we couldn't. So these people wandered in the desert for 40 years because they believed the reports of the giants in their lives. I see the giants as being projections. I see the giants as being afraid of what's going to happen in the future. Numbers are numbers. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. Ms. de Bonaventura said that if she had known now what she had known then when she was making decisions, she would have made different decisions. We must not be afraid to go forth and to act on this decision now, because in doing this, we begin to, number one, heal our community. In doing this, we show our strength and the camaraderie in being able to come together as a community and to be able together as a community to work out the projections that have been given. As a community, we will be able to see as we're going forward, even in 2 years, the changes that will or will not occur. If we wait 2 years, we're still back at the same spot in 2 years. If we move forward now, we may not be able to move forward by leaps and bounds, but we're still moving forward to be able to continue to work, heal, and to have a community that works as one for, number one, the very purpose that we sit here as a board, and that's for the education of our children in the very best situation that we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gilbert.
I'm looking at the time. Before stating my vote, I'd like to review the factors that are determining my vote tonight, including some issues raised by my colleagues around the quality of data, the process, and the plan itself, including its educational impacts, its fiscal impacts, as well as ethical concerns. In terms of the data, the district administration does 10-year projections every year. It has been clear over a period of years that the number of students is increasing significantly. In January 2012, Dr. McGinley came to the board and asked for funds to hire an external consultant with expertise in school enrollments in order to ensure that our internal numbers were in fact correct and that we had the data we needed to properly plan moving forward. That report was published in May 2012. Since that time, another independent consultant reviewed the methodology and concluded that they would conduct the study in the same manner. And Dr. McGinley deserves credit for having the foresight to do this. In the past, there were no external expert data used to make the decision about spending $200 million to build the 2 high schools, and the high schools are too small. The decision was based on internal data only. And while data has been presented by some members of the community, it is not data that has been analyzed by experts in enrollment projections or by people with an independent agenda. I want to make clear here that this board is doing exactly what we said we were going to do, and that is making decisions on the best data, the most independent data, and the most expert data that is possible. And in fact, enrollment is running just slightly ahead of projections. Another issue I would like to raise is our process. We have engaged in an extensive board and community discussion of the proposed plan since January of this year, with over 20 meetings total, including 7 education and business meetings, 9 committee meetings, meetings in which the civic associations came before the board and which the administration went to present at civics, as well as to the ISC. I counted 6 of these meetings. We take seriously our commitment to engage with all of the different stakeholders and have listened carefully to their concerns. I would like to now turn to the proposal itself. As it has been clear over the past few years that our schools were reaching capacity, the board has consistently told the administration that our priority was to respond to the changing conditions in the most educationally and fiscally responsible manner. Specifically, we asked the administration to develop plans that would not increase class sizes beyond our current targets and would ensure that we are able to offer the educational and co-curricular programs that we believe make our district excellent. I believe all of us supported that. We wanted to achieve this in the most fiscally responsible manner, given that the increase in enrollments was going to cost us significant amounts of money due to needing increasing numbers of teachers and staff, in an Act 1 environment that does not allow us to increase tax dollars in response to increasing enrollments, and I think that's a significant point. The plan that we have in front of us is, in fact, the most fiscally responsible plan. I believe it is simply wasteful of tax dollars to spend millions of additional dollars to build at Harriton when we have classrooms in this building that can accommodate our increases for far less money, since we have been assured by the administration that we can keep reasonable parity in our education and co-curricular programming with both schools maintaining populations over 1,200. And we have been assured of that. The administration has repeatedly assured us of that, as well as addressing many of the issues that were raised earlier, such as safety, which I'm not going to go into right now. So rather than renovating the classrooms at Lower Merion High School and building at Harriton, it is both educationally and fiscally responsible to renovate only at Lower Merion High School. We have heard the concerns from the community surrounding Lower Merion High School, and we will work to mitigate the effects of the increased enrollment. We believe, the administration believes, that the impact of a larger student enrollment at Lower Merion High School will be significantly less than it was prior to construction, and we will continue to work with the community as partners to ensure that this is the case. Since it is most fiscally and educationally responsible to renovate the existing classrooms at Lower Merion High School, the question becomes how to best get students to Lower Merion High School, and we can do this in one of two ways. First, we can wait until Harriton is close to the 1,400 student limit and redistrict, i.e. compel students to come to Lower Merion. How are we going to do this? My guess is we will then tell the students from Ardmore and Narberth, who live closest to Lower Merion High School, who had the choice taken away from them in 2009, that they're no longer allowed to go to Harriton and must go to Lower Merion since they live the closest. This has been presented to me by many people in the community. This is frankly unacceptable. They will be then the only students in the district who do not have the option of staying with their school cohort. It will simply be unethical, in my view, to treat these communities and their children as the people who get moved around to solve the district's and larger communities' problems. Therefore, we will have to figure out how to redistrict K through 12, which really doesn't make sense because there isn't overcapacity anywhere, and it's going to tear this community apart again. And if anyone has any doubt of that, I'm not sure where they've been living the past 5 years. So the better alternative, in my view, is to increase the choice area now, thereby slowly shifting the population to Lower Merion through choice. We do not need to compel any group of students to go to a different school if we approve this plan. This has the benefit of allowing the administration to plan for population shifts well in advance, something the administration has stated. It allows the principals to plan for changes in population slowly and over a longer period of time. And it does not require this community to go through another redistricting that pits neighborhoods against each other. In sum, this plan has the benefit of being fiscally and educationally responsible, allowing the administration the time it needs to plan effectively and responsibly, negates the need to undergo a redistricting that will pit neighborhoods against each other again, and it allows us to do so by restoring choice to the Narberth and Ardmore communities that have been impacted by every major redistricting or school closing in the last 50 years. We need to make this decision now and move on to the important issues that need addressing right now, including Keystone exams, Common Core, PVAS, teacher evaluations, curriculum changes, and strategic planning. These are all incredibly important issues that we really need to focus on. Therefore, I vote yes, and I do so in my belief that it represents the best interests of this entire community. So is it my understanding that we actually need to vote?
At this point, assuming there's no objection to ending the debate, now you would call for a roll call vote.
Okay, so now, is there any objection to ending debate at this point?
I do have one question, and I mean this sincerely. How do you address the buses and other vehicles being moved off the site? Because we hear repeatedly it's fiscally responsible because of the comparison of classrooms. I get that part of it, but how do you address the buses, and where does that play in the cost?
First of all, the administration has answered that question, and one of the answers is that given the increasing enrollment numbers, we're going to have to address this question regardless of where the students are. So we've got increasing numbers of students across the district, and we're going to have to deal with the busing issue.
True, but not
And I believe in
necessarily within
2004,
your
the
site.
CAC report recommended moving the buses off-site. So we
did?
are not,
Okay.
it's not a
All right.
new idea.
Yeah, but there were 100 buses on site. If you read the report, you would
Well,
know
I
that.
don't want to get,
All right,
seriously.
you know
I-
what? I really feel like I think that we have managed to have this conversation in a fairly respectful way, at this point. So I'd like to kind of keep it to that. But I believe that that's, my personal, you seem directing it towards me. So are there any other comments or questions?
I just have two quick comments. One, Mrs. Pollard, I didn't say I would change my vote. I voted to support the CAC report against my own misunderstanding of how wise it really was. And I would not, so I would not have changed any vote that I had had. And secondly, I just feel like the language being used by the board about making this decision doesn't compel any student to go to a school that they don't want to go to is just so frustrating to me, because there are at least 4 towns in this township whose children do not get to choose where they're going, and nobody seems to care about those kids.
You know what, I don't actually think that's fair, Diane, and I'm really, frankly, those kids actually go to local community schools. They go to neighboring schools. The difference between...
Do you know how far Belmont Hills is from... Do you know how far Belmont Hills is from Harrington? Belmont Hills is closer to Lower Merion than Harrington.
A lot of communities are closer to Lower
But
Merion.
don't call them
All right.
their neighborhood school. They're not their neighborhood
Well,
school.
Belmont Hills is their neighborhood school. Belmont Hills is actually their neighborhood school. That's where the school's located. I think at this point that it is time to call for a vote. So I would like to do that at this point. We're going to do the roll call again?
Yes. Dr. Golden,
Vote yes.
Ms. Kugel,
No, not at this time.
Mr. Freelander,
No.
Mr. Novick,
No.
Ms. D. Bonaventura,
No.
Dr. Van Lynch,
Yes.
Ms. Pollard,
Yes.
Ms. Robinson,
Yes.
Dr. Gilbert.
Yes.
I have 5 yeses and 4 nos.
Motion carries.
Motion passes.
We actually have more business. So we have some other committee reports. I don't know if people would like to make some very short reports would be my recommendation at this point. Is there other people who would like to make reports? I think.
The Communications Committee met on October the 23rd at 8 p.m. in this room. We were highlighted on the different events of the community by Doug Young, and one of them was our Lower Merion High School and Harrington High School getting the LEED award, and that's for their environment and their production of keeping things green and environmentally friendly. We had a presentation of the enrollment and growth planning expanded choice proposal by Pat Gannon and Vic Orlando, we also talked about the Education Trivial fundraiser, which was on 11/9. We also heard that a report from Mr. Trevani who is the parking expert, about the enrollment of 1,400 at each one of the schools. And since there is not there yet at this particular time, there is no need to do anything about the parking. Our next meeting will be held on Wednesday, November the 20th at 8:30 a.m. here in this room.
Okay, are there other people who need to make now, or do they feel they could wait until the next meeting?
Just a very quick, I will defer most of the discussion of the legislative committee, but there are two issues of concern. There's a charter school bill in Harrisburg that I will speak about. And then tomorrow is the last day for parents if they want to submit comments about a policy that the IRRC is voting on. So the board has not taken a stance on this, but the ISC has communicated with parents. And so if any parents have views on that, you can submit your comments by 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. You have a few hours still to dsumner@irrc.state.pa.us.
Thank you. You're going to hold off on your report until the next meeting? Okay. No, I know. I'm just looking to see if anybody else has anything else they want to say. Okay, at this point, we are going to take audience recognition on any topic. Please come up. Sorry, it's getting late. Come up, sign in with Ms. LaPera, state your name and where you live, 3-minute limit. I think everybody knows the drill. If there's everybody who wants to speak, now's the time to come up. We're doing this in one shot. Is there anybody who would like to come up and speak at this time? Okay, seeing none, I'd like to just read the Sunshine Act announcements and schedule of upcoming meetings, which I don't seem to have the schedule in front of me.
It's on the back.
Thank you. We met in exec session on November 18th to talk about personnel and litigation. We have a meeting scheduled for November 20th at 8:30 a.m. Communications. December 2nd, 8 p.m., the reorganization meeting. December 3rd, 8:30 a.m., curriculum. December 6th, 8:30 a.m., policy. December 11th, 7 p.m., communications. December 12th, 8 a.m., facilities and purchasing. And December 16th, 8 p.m., the regular building meeting. Again, I would like to, give a...
Business meeting.
What did I say?
It's not
Oh, it
you.
does, regular business meeting. I'm sorry, it does say building. Okay, but regular business meeting. Before we adjourn, I would like to again thank Gary, Jerry, and Lynn for their years of service. And with that, we are adjourned.